State of North Carolina vs. Benny Montgomery. Number 579 Supreme Court of North Carolina, December 18, 1946. Criminal prosecution on indictment charging the defendant with the murder of one William Marvin Mangum. The verdict returned by the jury at the trial is that the defendant Benny Montgomery is guilty of murder in the first degree. The judgment in the action as shown by the record is as follows. Benny Montgomery, you have been indicted, tried, and convicted by a jury of your county of the murder of one William Marvin Mangum. The law prescribes, in General Statutes of North Carolina, Section 14 to 17, that the punishment for your crime is death. The judgment of the court, therefore, is that you be remanded to the common jail of Union County and there remain until the adjournment of this court. It is ordered that you be conveyed by the High Sheriff of Union County to the penitentiary of the state of North Carolina, at Raleigh, North Carolina, and by such sheriff be delivered to the warden of said penitentiary. And it is further ordered and adjudged and decreed that you remain in the custody of said warden until Friday, the 15th day of November, 1946, and that on said day and between the hours of 10 in the forenoon and 3 o'clock in the afternoon that you be taken by the said warden to the place provided for execution in said penitentiary, and it is further adjudged that the said warden, deputy warden, or such other person as may be designated according to law, then and there take you, the said Benny Montgomery, into the permanent death chamber which has been provided in said penitentiary and there and therein cause you to inhale lethal gas of sufficient quantity to cause death, to be administered to you, and to continue said inhaling of said lethal gas by you, until you are dead, and may God have mercy on your soul. This the 22nd day of August, 1946. Frank M. Armstrong, Judge presiding. The defendant accepted to the judgment, and appealed to the Supreme Court assigning errors in the trial. Coble Funderbeck, of Monroe, for defendant appellant. Harry M. Mullen, Attorney General, and T. W. Bruton, Hughes J. Rhodes, and Ralph M. Moody, Assistant Attorneys General for the state. Schenck, Justice. The evidence offered by the state at the trial of this action was admitted without prejudicial error. This evidence tended to show that William Marvin Mangum was stabbed and fatally wounded on the highway in Union County on the 1st of June, 1946, at approximately 11 o'clock a.m., and while returning to his home from delivering milk in Monroe, North Carolina, and while he was on the dirt road to his own house, a little less than a quarter mile from his home, was killed by being stabbed with some sharp instrument, so that he bled to death. His pocketbook, containing $84.87 was missing. The defendant Benny Montgomery was indicated for the crime of murder in the first degree, and was tried at the August criminal term of the Superior Court of Union County on said indictment. The jury returned a verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree, and, from judgment of death pronounced thereon, the defendant appealed to the Supreme Court. There are 5 accepted assignments of error in the record, namely, 1. To the court's overruling of the defendant's demurrer to the state's evidence as to the capital crime. 2. To the court's overruling defendant's motion for a judgment as of non-suit at the close of the state's evidence. 3. To the court's overruling defendant's motion for judgment as of non-suit at the close of all the evidence. 4. To the court's overruling defendant's motion to set aside the verdict and order a new trial. 5. To the court's pronouncing judgment as set forth in the record. The evidence was sufficient to sustain the indictment and the verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree. The credibility of the witnesses and the probative effect of the evidence were for the determination of the jury. The evidence offered by the state supports the contention that the defendant is the man who stabbed and fatally wounded William Marvin Mangum on the first day of June, 1946. It is an evidence that the defendant admitted he had stabbed the deceased with a knife. There was no error in the refusal of the court to dismiss the action as in case of non-suit at the close of the state's evidence. The defendant offered none. No valid objection to the evidence was made by the defendant during the trial, and there was no assignment of error in the defendant's appeal to this court based upon the admission or rejection of evidence. Therefore, it is taken that no error was committed in the taking of the evidence, nor was there any assignment of error in the charge of the court to the jury. Therefore, it is taken that the jury was properly instructed by the court in respect to the verdict, which they should return upon the facts as they might find them to be from the evidence. The charge was full, fair, and correct. The verdict as returned by the jury cannot be set aside or disturbed by this court. It must stand as returned. State v. Jackson, 199 NC 321, 154 SC 402. There is error, however, in the form of the judgment in this action. It does not appear on the face of the judgment that the defendant has been convicted of a crime which is punishable by death under the law of this state. It appears only that the defendant has been convicted of murder. it does not appear that he has been convicted of murder in the first degree. The crime of murder in the first degree is punishable by death, while all other kinds of murder are punishable by imprisonment in the state's prison. GSS 14 to 17. The judgment appearing in the record is not sufficient to justify the execution of the defendant by the warden of the state's prison. It should appear on the face of the judgment, which is alone certified to the warden that defendant has been convicted of a capital felony. GSSS 15 to 188, 15 to 189, 15 to 190. The action must be remanded to the Superior Court of Union County, to the end that a proper judgment on the verdict as returned by the jury may be rendered. State v. Langley, 204 NC 687, 169 SE 705. It is so ordered.
Robert Williams did not come home from the army to pick cotton, but his friend Benny Montgomery did. He returned to the farm his father operated as a sharecropper for W. Mangum, a white landowner near Monroe. Montgomery had been Williams's classmate in high school and his companion at the NYA training camp, where Williams led his first racial protest. When Williams moved to Detroit, Montgomery went into the army and fought the Germans in Europe. Badly wounded in the Battle of the Bulge, Montgomery had a steel plate in his head, according to Williams, and wasn't normal anymore. Whether the injury had anything to do with what happened after Montgomery came home is difficult to say. On Friday night, May 31st, 1946, Benny Montgomery drank too much and wrecked his father's car. Saturday was a regular work day on the Mangum place, but Montgomery asked the landlord for his wages at noon, explaining that he needed to go to Monroe and have his father's automobile repaired. Whatever may have been said, Montgomery apparently stepped outside the dance of deference that governs Southern race relations. Mangum kicked and slapped the young veteran, and a fistfight broke out between the two men, in the heat of which Montgomery whipped out a pocket knife and cut his employer's throat, killing the white man and showering himself with blood. According to Williams, the police found Montgomery sitting in this little old restaurant drinking beer, still had the blood on his clothes and everything, sitting there drinking beer just as though nothing hadn't happened. The Ku Klux Klan wanted to lynch the black sharecropper, but state authorities whisked him away from the Monroe jail for safekeeping. Tried and convicted of murder, Benny Montgomery was sitting on death row at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, when Williams returned home from the army. Everybody was trying to get the governor to commute his death penalty, Williams said, and the governor wouldn't do it, so they gassed him. Benny Montgomery died in North Carolina's gas chamber at Central Prison on March 28, 1947. The state of North Carolina shipped Montgomery's body back to Monroe for burial. Robbed of their lynching, the local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan let it be known that the body belonged not to the Montgomery family, but to the invisible empire. The Klan threatened to kill the black funeral director unless he removed the U.S. flag atop the veteran's casket. They was going to come and take Benny's body out and drag it up and down the street. J.W. McDowell, another African-American veteran, recalled, "I'd rather die and go to hell before I see that happen." A group of former soldiers met at Booker T. Perry's barbershop and made a battle plan. When the Klan motorcade pulled up in front of Harris Funeral Home, 40 black men leveled their rifles, taking aim at the line of cars. Not a shot was fired. The Klansmen simply weighed their chances and then drove away. While Booker T. Perry, a World War I veteran, orchestrated the defense of Benny Montgomery's body, former U.S. Army Private Robert F. Williams carried a rifle that night. So did 3 other men who would become key lieutenants in the black militia that Williams organized in Monroe 10 years later, after leadership in the struggle had passed to a new generation. That was one of the first incidents, Williams recalled, that really started us to understanding that we had to resist, and that resistance could be effective if we resisted in groups, and if we resisted with guns.
Uncle Sam said, your place is on the ground. When I fly my airplane, don't want no Negro around. The same thing for the Navy, ships go to sea. All they got is a misboard job for me. Uncle Sam said, keep on your waiting, son. You know I ain't gonna let you shoot my big Navy gun. Got my long government letters, my time to go. When I got to the army, found the same old Jim Crow. Uncle Sam said, to camp for black and white. But when trouble starts, we'll all be in that same fight.
Sing that thing, Josh White. Katherine Massey Book Club, Context of White Supremacy, the worthless Negro from Virginia, Gus T, Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, July 24, 2026. So I have been told. This is our third session on the memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams. We are picking up on chapter 12. That is the great Josh White, who was invited to the White House as a result of the impact of this song, his entertainment using his voice and artistry as best he could to address the system of white supremacy, racism, his smash hit Uncle Sam Say, gonna let no Negro carry my big Navy gun. Facts. Thought that would be appropriate for where we left off in this section. Now, what we heard at the beginning, number one, that is from the North Carolina court record for the death row case of Benny Montgomery for the state of North Carolina. That was brief, and I mean briefly. Robert F. Williams slipped in one sentence about that last week and saying that old Mr. Montgomery came back from World War II and that he must have been shell-shocked, and that's why he killed his white boss, and he went right on with the rest of his story. And I was so taken aback with that that I started researching last week, and I think I started with the bot, and the bot said, oh yeah, there's more information about Mr. Montgomery, and for this case it went all the way to the North Carolina Supreme Court, and he did in fact was executed in the gas chamber, and then the Klan tried to drag his body through the streets, and Robert F. Williams was a part of this defense. Like, what? I was stunned. I guess one, that Mr. Williams didn't give more information about this incident since it was so dramatic. He was so intimately involved, plus he knew Mr. Montgomery. They went to school together. Just, man, I was surprised on so many levels. Anyway, my surprise and intrigue led me to get more research, so I found that from the North Carolina record. I thought that was important, one, because the North Carolina court record does not say anything about the wages that Mr. Montgomery had asked for and apparently was denied, where he wanted to go and repair his father's vehicle. Sobriety would be best. But they just note this as a robbery, that this old, spiteful Negro robbed a white man. Okay. And then, more importantly, the court record, Supreme Court record, unless I'm mistaken, they said, the white judge said that according to the record of what Mr. Montgomery was convicted of, he was not convicted of a capital offense. He was not convicted of first-degree murder. That, you can give him the death penalty. They said, according to what you all convicted him of, this is prison sentence. I said, whoa. Now, I looked at this and I sent the whole court record to the bot that said, yep, you are reading this correctly. Apparently white people, what they call it, the kangaroo courts, is that the Klan wanted to lynch him anyway. They didn't even want to go through this whole process, this whole charade of railroading, if you will. But they were so in a rush to get rid of Mr. Montgomery, they didn't even properly convict him so that they could have a death row execution. And they said it doesn't even matter, we're going to do it anyway. And I suspect the Klan upset regardless because they were denied their lynching, as it said. All of that extra, unfortunately, was from suspected racist Timothy B. Tyson. He's written many nonfiction books about incidents in popular black people who are victims of racism, like Emmett Till and many others. But that is from his book, Radio Free Dixie, which is all focused on Robert F. and Mabel Williams, and that is how he begins, I believe it's chapter 3, with that anecdote of Benny Montgomery, and that is so much more detailed. That's why I said I was stunned that Robert F. Williams didn't have more to say about that incident, even just Benny Montgomery at the Battle of the Bulge. Like, wow, white people talk about that to this day. It's almost been a full century since that happened. Like, wow. And he was injured there and all of that, should have got a Purple Heart and all the rest of, like, wow. Again, I can understand he had a lot to tell, but I mean, and then we are not going to allow the Klan to drag a World War II veteran's body through the streets in an act of white terrorism. We're going to organize 40 privileged black males to defend his corpse. Wow. And putting this in context, granular detail. You heard from the court record, Benny Montgomery, executed on March 28, 1947. What happened exactly 18 days later? Jackie Robinson played his first Major League Baseball game April 15, 1947. I suspect there are many newspapers throughout the continent, maybe even, I was going to say maybe the world, maybe not the world, but certainly throughout the continent, that are talking about those two events at the same time. I bet you there are black newspapers that talk about those two events concurrently because they happen so close. It would be when Jackie Robinson is signed and then training camp and all of that, and oh yeah, they executed Benny Montgomery and wanted to drag his body through the streets. World War II veteran Benny Montgomery. And in fact, the last thing I'll say about this, I included on social media how I shared this event. They have extensive papers on Robert F. Williams, some of which includes his extensive FBI file. How many informants did they have on he and Mabel Williams? But they have his papers, and some of this includes like letters and correspondence during the years that he was in exile and wanted for unjust persecution. But he was doing his radio program in Cuba, and he has notes for things that he's going to talk about. This dude has a list of notes for one of the programs that he did while he was down in Cuba. It reads, Record of Racism, number 15. Negro police not allowed to arrest white people regardless of crime. I think we heard about some of that in the book already, and have heard about that many times on the cows already. 14. Domestics who are forced out of necessity to work for $8 per week. 15. So-called segregated telephone lines. 3 incidents in my life. 16. Benny Montgomery, veteran, killed by state in gas chamber for killing his employer, threatened to march and drag his body, didn't want flag on his casket, didn't want to bury him in his uniform. Apparently he talked about this on one of his radio programs. 17. When I was a child, I saw a chief of police, Jesse Helms, dragging a colored woman down the street. Now, he didn't name Jesse Helms, and yes, this would be relative of Senator Jesse Helms. But he did mention this white people abusing sexually and otherwise black females. We heard a lot about that. And then last, 18, when in the army, during Second World War, Negro soldiers riding troop train denied right to get donuts and coffee being issued by Red Cross, could not insult white women by making threat to serve Negro soldiers. We did hear about that last week. We will get to it. Man, I would love to get my hands on that program of Radio Free Dixie where he talks about all of this, to hear what extra tidbits he had to share directly about Mr. Montgomery and the rest of it too. But we will get to it. The Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams, Katherine Massey Book Club, audio segment 1. Sing that thing, Josh.
Uncle Sam said, we'll live the American way. Let's get together and kill Jim Crow today.
Chapter 12. Prison Spiral into Tent City. The stockade was a place of all kinds of attitudes and dispositions. The warden was a major stonebreaker. I thought it was a joke when I first was told that his name was Stonebreaker, but I learned that his name was really Stonebreaker, and it appeared that he was trying to live up to his name. As prisoners, we were assigned to work in a fenced-in woodyard. It was winter time and very cold in that part of Missouri. The prison system had placed discarded barrels inside the work compound wherein we could burn most of the wood we cut to keep warm. Some crews cut wood while others congregated around the fires, told jokes of their past, and shared their dreams for the future. Often, it seemed, the prisoners were engaging in a game of who could relate the tallest tale. However, there was much deriding of the men from the Deep South. Southern life was so ridiculed that none of the group wanted to admit being from the South. White guards policed the fenced-in compound where we worked. The guards who patrolled from raised guardhouses and along the fences crowned with barbed wire were at a loss in trying to control the activity within. On occasion, some of the white soldier guards displayed sympathy and solidarity with the black prisoners. Unnecessary talking, playing, and smoking were banned. Some looked the other way while we broke the rules, while other guards were forcefully tough. They cursed, threatened, and sometimes wrote prisoners up, but the men stood together covering for each other. On a few occasions we became unruly and defiant to such an extent that Warden Stonebreaker was summoned and became so frustrated that he ordered us to remain locked in the work compound through our lunch hour. Perhaps half a mile from our woodyard was a German prisoner of war camp. Oftentimes we could hear music and songs in German emanating from their camp. It appeared that they were much more comfortable than we were. A detail of German prisoners was marched daily by our work compound. They served as attendants in white officers' clubs. As the days went by, they started to identify with us. They would smile and give a clenched fist salute, and we responded in kind. Eventually, we started to find packs of cigarettes scattered in the woodpile. The Germans were stealing cigarettes from the officers' clubs, and as they returned to their camp after dark, they would throw the packs over the fence so we would find them the next morning when we came to work. One day when we came to work in the woodyard, there were no cigarettes. There was loud music, great laughter, and joyful sounds coming from the prisoner of war camp. A friendly guard informed us that the Germans were shipping out for home. Later that day, we watched as an army of blue uniforms marched by us. Many of them smiled, saluted, and waved goodbye to us. It was a scene of mixed emotions. The Germans were happy to be going home, but we were losing the friendly faces we had known outside our group. This was the end of the forbidden smokes. Routinely, after lunch, we were allowed to rest a few minutes in our barrack. We were allowed to lie on the floor beside our bunks, but we would be punished if we were caught lying on the beds. One day I overslept and missed roll call during formation. The men had hurried so frantically to make the formation that they had not noticed that I was still sleeping. Such an offense was always punished severely. I was taken before Major Stonebreaker, and he sentenced me to 1 week in Tent City. Tent City, no doubt, was the nearest thing to a concentration camp on U.S. soil. It had very high double fences. The fences were about 8 feet apart and were topped with rolled barbed wire. Its interior was about 200 feet square. Overlooking the compound were towering guardhouses on the east and west sides. .30 caliber machine guns were mounted on tripods that allowed them to protrude out of the windowless structures. The prisoners inside the barbed wire were the only troops exposed to racially integrated living conditions at Camp Crowder. All the guards were white. A white soldier who had been in the notorious Alcatraz prison informed me that Tent City was much harsher than that had been. Tent City consisted of 2-man pup tents, a hole in the ground, and straw for bedding. We were issued 2 thin blankets and a mess kit. Each day, just before dark, a truck brought K-rations, and individually packaged food was thrown over the gate. Only a small detail of inmates was allowed at the gate to fill our canteens with water. Upon confinement, we had been strip searched for matches, cigarettes, or any other contraband. Tent City was only operated in the dead of winter. It was meant to break the spirit of soldiers who would not submit. However, it conditioned many to become more defiant. All that I had seen, all that I had experienced as a child growing up in a cruelly segregated America, climaxed with great embellishment with the Tent City ordeal. One night, because of the bitter cold, none of us had been able to sleep by midnight. In contempt and defiance of the guards, many of us crawled out of the tent and started exercising in front of them to keep from freezing. The guards frantically yelled through their bullhorns for us to return to our tents. Shortly after midnight, we could see the bright lights of a convoy moving toward us. We braced for a showdown that we were sure was to come. The convoy stopped at the gate, and 2 soldiers dismounted and proceeded to tug at the locks on the gate. Though they labored feverishly, their work was in vain. They were unable to budge the locks. After repeated conferences and a long delay, another detail arrived with soldering torches. The locks had been frozen beyond operation. When the gate was open, a medical officer announced by bullhorn that we were all to prepare to return to the stockade. The medics had insisted that we be moved to warmer quarters, stating that if we remained under those extremely cold temperatures and conditions, we possibly would not survive the night. We were moved to heated barracks, and Tent City was closed permanently. Chapter 13. Phil Grace, Defiance to Freedom. The stockade had an isolation section. Prisoners who fouled up were sent there. The cells were dark. Day could be distinguished from night only through a small round hole that let in a ray of sunlight during midday. There was no mail call there, and the diet consisted of 1 loaf of bread and a pitcher of water daily. It was necessary to hang the bread on a suspended wire to keep it from the rats. A big white lieutenant from Georgia, who was a boxer, would be sent in to intimidate noisy and unruly inmates. He was the enforcer who beat the men into submission. A young corporal, assigned to the bread and water distribution detail, was told by Phil Grace, an inmate from Chicago, that the next time he came to bring his daily fare, he had better have his mail and bread with some butter on it. Phil threatened that if he did not come with those demands, he was going to kick his ass. The prison grapevine was humming with the news that Phil had broken bad. The following day was a time of great supposition. We were very sorry for what we knew Phil had coming to him. As had been customary, we saw the big boxer go to the isolation section. The men were as silent as could be. We wanted to hear what was transpiring. We could hear Phil cursing. He was a habitually prolific curser. He used all of the wicked, scurrilous words of the Chicago ghetto. He often bragged about how bad he was and how many men he had messed up. We thought of him as just a slick windbag. Now, we thought that his big mouth had gotten his ass into a situation of deep grief. We heard the lieutenant screaming for the guards to unlock the cell door and let him out. The lieutenant's screams were those of a man in deep pain and frantically desperate for survival. The guards scrambled to make way for his speedy exit. When the big white boxer was pulled out, he was splattered with blood and was bleeding profusely. Somehow, Phil Grace, who was Chicago ghetto slick, had concealed a razor blade and taken it into isolation. He had positioned it between his fingers, and with the palm of his hand open, he had seized the initiative before the boxer could go into action. Great joy swept over the compound. The men were highly elated, and some jumped for joy. Phil Grace was a hero who had matched his extensive bragging with deeds. He was for real. 3 days after the incident, Warden Stonebreaker brought in a board of high officers. They met with Phil Grace and issued him a dishonorable discharge. They gave him a black suit with sleeves and legs too short, a bus ticket, and $25 in cash. As he left, he cursed Major Stonebreaker for everything he could think of and challenged him to a duel. He yelled to us that we were fools to stay in the white man's army. He said he was Chicago-bound and that as soon as he made it to the South Side, he would lay a chick and drink a Bloody Mary for us. That was the last we saw or heard of Phil Grace. He was now a legend among us, and in a strange way, in the following days, we all missed him and his big mouth. The following month, Camp Crowder was closed, and we were dispersed across the country. I was sent to Fort Lewis, Washington. The Army was in a period of transition. I was assigned to a casual company with nothing much to do. Demobilization was underway, but my name was way up the list. I got in a lot of sleep, and that served to allay the anxiety attendant to waiting. Rather than a discharge, I was given leave. I was happy to be going, but I was already dreading the thought of having to come back. In the 2 weeks before my furlough, I started to experience a series of dreams that bordered on what I thought to be some strange vision. A dream kept reoccurring, wherein a very beautiful girl was always there. Mostly during my daytime naps, this girl appeared for more than a week. She was unknown and yet seemed so familiar. When I explained it to my barracks acquaintances, they laughed and told me that I was really going batty. They joked that I was more due for a Section 8 than a furlough. Chapter 14. Furlough Encounter. It was late spring when I left Tacoma, Washington by train. I looked for the strange girl I had dreamed so much about at every stop. I would go through the train stations, searching for a familiar face among the travelers. Most of the travelers were servicemen being transferred or on their way home. I had a long layover in Chicago. I desperately searched the crowd that milled about the station. I even visited some nearby bars. I had finally come to realize that the whole affair was but a dream and nothing more. The nagging question now was why such a dream had reoccurred so many times. I was sadly disappointed when I hauled my heavy duffel bag aboard the southbound train from Chicago. The coach was full of drinking and joyful soldiers. Seats were scarce as I made my way through the coach. Near the end of the car, this very pretty girl, with her head buried in a magazine, ignoring the other soldiers' overtures, looked up at me and smiled. She spoke and asked whether she didn't know me. I stated that perhaps she did. I told her to slide over. She had sat next to the aisle and placed her belongings on the inside seat to reserve the seat to herself. We introduced ourselves. Her name was Helen Edwards. She lived in Chicago and was going to Columbia, South Carolina to visit her grandmother. As we approached Chattanooga, Tennessee, the conductor announced that the train would be there for 30 minutes. I convinced Helen to leave the train and walk with me through the station. When the 5 minutes notice of the train's departure was given, I asked Helen to remain outside the entrance to the coach. I told her that I had a big surprise. I could tell she was greatly puzzled. I rushed aboard the coach and hurried off with our luggage. She wanted to know what I was doing. Her voice reflected anger. I explained in a commanding voice, as my heart pounded with anxiety, that we were stopping over there so that we could have more time together. The train pulled away as she pouted childishly. A taxi driver drove us to a cozy little black-owned hotel. At that time, stringent segregation was still in force. Eventually, her anger and shyness vanished, and we fondly exchanged our life stories. By the time we left the next day, we were engaged to be married. She insisted that I go with her to Columbia to meet her grandmother. I promised her that after I had visited with my mother for a day, I would come to her. My mother wanted to know what was so important that I would leave after one day at home. When I explained that I was engaged to a girl that I was going to visit for a few days, she asked how long I had known this girl. When I told her that I had met her on the train, Mama became very upset. She exclaimed that being in the Army must have driven me crazy. My older sister concurred. Their negative reaction dampened my enthusiasm. Helen's grandmother, Mrs. Bailey, lived alone on a dusty street in a small house with a fenced-in yard. Though the house was old and weather-beaten, it was immaculate inside and was filled with objects that reflected character. It was obvious that she was highly religious and that she memorialized her relatives and friends with a great array of photographs. Mrs. Bailey was a feisty little woman who delighted in relating her many experiences. She told me that the previous month a white policeman who resented a black man having a new car had stopped him on a phony traffic violation and shot him dead right in the presence of his screaming, hysterical wife. The expression on her aged face related evidence of the distraught emotion that lingered in her heart. Bubbling over with consternation, she declared that if it had been her man and her, she would have come out of that car with the pistol blazing that was subsequently found in the car. She said that day she would have gone to judgment with her man. Her attitude gave me cause for admiring her. I visited Helen in Columbia twice before returning to Fort Lewis. 4 letters arrived from Helen before I was discharged the following month, but after the 4 letters, I never heard from her again. As a civilian, I had a great urge to visit her grandmother. I never made it. Helen seemed to have disappeared as mysteriously as she had appeared. I always wondered what happened to her. Chapter 15. Confronting Jim and Jane Crow at the employment office. Monroe, my hometown, had not changed much. Camp Sutton had closed, and the soldiers had gone. The streets flourished with local ex-soldiers who had come home wearing ruptured duck patches affixed to their army uniforms, showing that they had been honorably discharged from the military. We had returned to our racially segregated community after a military service that left our lot pretty much the same as it had been for many generations. There was a shortage of employment, so the government had initiated a program we called the 5220 Club. It constituted a stipend of $20 given to each veteran weekly for a period of 52 weeks. In my community, we congregated in the local barber shop, where we renewed old acquaintances, a tightly knit camaraderie. Individuals had been to all corners of the world, and each one had different experiences to draw from. Unemployed, short on money, and having hardly any place of amusement where we would be welcome, we entertained ourselves. Veterans who were sustained by the 5220 Club had to report to the local employment office weekly with a list of at least 3 places we had visited in pursuit of work. All the workers in the employment office were white, and their attitudes bore witness to the fact that they resented black ex-service personnel receiving any service-connected benefits. With the passing of each week, the caseworker's tone of voice became more and more hostile. The office supervisor was the worst offender. She was an Amazonian type with peroxide bleached hair. She had a very nasty attitude and talked to what she called the colored veterans as if we were no more than dogs. She had a tendency of discussing her golf game with other workers while black persons were forced to wait out her contempt. Her name was Kate Kaysen, and her attitude had become a daily barbershop topic of conversation. Everyone who could would maneuver to avoid having her take care of his or her report. Sometimes we waited in the hallway until she had become busy so as to avoid her desk. On one occasion, when I went in to report for my 5220, Mrs. Kaysen called me to her desk. Evidently, she had heard me make a comment concerning the fact that the whites were displaying a slave master attitude. I had spoken loud enough to the black veterans deliberately so that the white office workers could hear my comment. When I obeyed her offer to sit at her desk, I could tell that she was greatly upset and had pegged me as someone who needed to be put back in his place. With a scowl on her puffy white face, she informed me that she had a job offer for me. "Good," I said. "What kind of job is it?" I asked, surprised because virtually no jobs worth having were available to black applicants. "It's a good job for you," she said gleefully. "Where is it located?" I asked, puzzled. "At the Pure Oil service station," she informed me. "How much does it pay?" "It pays $18 a week," I was told. "No, I want to keep looking for a better paying job," I said. Her face became drawn, her mouth quivered, and the tone of her voice became even more caustic. "You know, the law says that your claim becomes void when you refuse gainful employment. If you refuse this offer of gainful employment, I'll have to deny processing your claim." "That's not gainful employment. I'll lose money by taking that job," I explained, pointing out that the 5220 Club accorded me $20 a week. The job paid $2 less, and I would have to get to the job, buy lunch, and acquire extra clothes. She went into a spiteful tirade. "The trouble with you Negro veterans is that you think the world owes you a living." Her words and manner angered me. "We don't think the world owes us a living any more than you do. We would just like a job sitting on our asses just like you." She became hysterical and jumped up from the desk. She shook with rage. "I don't have to take that kind of talk from you. I'll call Chief Jesse Helms and he'll throw you out of here," she shouted. Chief Jesse Helms, father of the man who was later to become Senator Jesse Helms, had a reputation of manhandling blacks. The mention of his name struck terror in the hearts of blacks who engendered the wrath of local gentry. He had been a policeman so long, it seemed he had become immune to law and the Constitution. I told her to go on and call him if that was what she wanted to do. She was shocked by my attitude. I am sure that she realized that I was not intimidated by her action, and to call in Chief Helms was going to create the type of incident that could expose the errant conduct of the white office workers toward black veterans. She backed down. The black veterans who had witnessed the action gave me a thumbs up and made it known that they were with me. It was obvious that they were elated that their feelings had been openly expressed. I appealed the local decision to the State Employment Office in Raleigh. Also, as a writer, I filed a self-employment claim which was approved. This entitled me to $100 a month instead of $20 per week. To the local white gentry, I had become a black pariah, and I now had the extremely dangerous label, uppity nigger. To the local black veterans, I had become a hero. Later that year, my life changed drastically. My mother died, and I became attracted to a local teenage girl, Mabel Robinson, and we were married. Chapter 16. Pursuing Higher Education. I exhausted my GI unemployment, after which I enrolled in West Virginia State College under the GI Bill. While there, I fell under the spell of Dr. Herman G. Kennedy and President John W. Davis, who greatly enhanced my tendency toward black consciousness. Dr. Kennedy was my psychology teacher. He was as much an entertainer as an educator. His classes were always overflowing. Students filled all the seats and sat on the floor, carefully absorbing his wisdom delivered in a comical vein. He never taught from the textbook, but insisted that we study the book on our own. His exams were always based on the formal course outline. He contended that we needed black psychology to face the life before us. He often reminded his students that surviving as a black man in the white man's America was pure hell. As often as possible, Dr. Davis attended the students' Friday night forums. In the forums, we discussed world events as related to the news media of the week. Like myself, many of the students were veterans. During this time, there was a vicious controversy swirling around the great artist Paul Robeson. Paul had appealed to the U.S. government to intervene in the South to protect the human rights of the Afro-American people. The government's reply was that the violent racial situation in the South was a local matter that the national government could not become involved in. It was said to be a matter of states' rights and not a national issue. This official reply had created great tension in many black communities. Attitudes became even more inflamed when Paul Robeson declared that if those were the only conditions that could give the government cause for direct intervention, then perhaps we should make it a national issue. The nation had not been accustomed to this kind of talk coming from a black man, most of all a famous black man who white America felt should have been more than appreciative of the fact that his talent had raised him high above the downtrodden masses. Many timid and Uncle Tom Negroes joined the chorus of condemnation, hoping to curry favor from their white benefactors. Our campus reflected the great debate that Robeson had sparked. Many Negroes declared for the pleasure of bigoted white America that Paul did not speak for the Negro. They publicly insisted that he spoke only for himself. The more militant and racially conscious among us declared that Paul spoke our very same sentiments. We were elated. He was our hero. We defended him with words and pledged to prepare ourselves for any action that might result. One veteran stood in the forum and related how he had defended this country once and would most surely do it again. He said he wanted to repudiate Paul Robeson's irrational declaration. He received a lukewarm ovation from the audience. In the wake of his speech, members of the crowd became very noisy as they commented among themselves. I had gotten the floor during the distraction and had started to speak. Dr. Davis rose to his feet, waved his hands frantically, and called excitedly for the students to listen to what I was saying. His manner telegraphed his elated approval. In a spirit of fervent disapproval of the former speaker, I declared that a black person who had fewer rights than a common street dog in this country should be ashamed to brag about he had defended America. I explained that such an attitude approximated that of the slaves, who had to be driven from their masters' plantations by a woman with a bullwhip, referring to Sojourner Truth. I further stated that Paul Robeson had soared to heights that many of us would call heavenly, and yet his concern and love for his wretched people had resulted in his risking it all for the upliftment of us all. I insisted that we should love the country enough to get rid of not only the Hitlers in Germany, but also the ones in America. I said that I was willing to fight the enemies abroad as well as the ones at home, and that Paul spoke for me when he uttered those glorious words. There was thunderous applause when I finished, and I felt pleased to have said what I felt needed to be said. My words had reversed the tendency of the meeting. Mr. Davis, Dr. Davis, ended the session with the words, "Young ladies and gentlemen, you do not have to be brilliant to outsmart the racist white man. All you have to do is do just the opposite of what he advises you to do." This remark brought the house down. West Virginia's state literary magazine, The Quill, had a rule that freshmen could not serve on its staff. I submitted some of my writings to them, and they waived the rule, making me the first freshman to serve. A Scottish poet, Dr. Edwin G. Davison, who visited our campus, saw some of my work in The Quill and requested to meet me. He looked at some of my other poems and informed me that he had detected a political strain, and that if I really wanted to succeed in the field, I would have to forego that tendency. He said that he would recommend me for a scholarship to study writing at the University of Colorado, and that I should go out there even if I had to thumb my way. By this time, I was married and already the father of a son. I was struggling to stay in school and keep my family together. I never made it to Colorado. My molding in black institutions, however, had its own virtue and merits. During the summer of 1950, at the age of 25, I attended North Carolina College at Durham, now North Carolina Central University. There, I shared a student room in the city with my childhood friend, Cad Roddy. While there, I was invited by Professor Ray to sit in his graduate course on literature. After the summer at North Carolina Central, I transferred to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte. The transfer there enabled me to live in Monroe with my wife and now 2 sons. It was a rugged daily commute from Monroe to Charlotte, riding in the back of the bus which the law and white culture required. Sometimes the white bus driver's attitudes could be downright hostile. The word was out that the Celanese Company was going to build a giant plant in Rock Hill, South Carolina, that was merely about 30 miles from Monroe. The foundation was already being constructed, and laborers as far away as Monroe were being recruited. We were told that Afro-Americans were to be given equal opportunity as white workers. In the summer of '51, a group of U.S. military veterans who had enrolled in college under the GI Bill commuted daily to the Celanese site as construction workers. We soon learned, to our consternation, that we had been misled about equal employment opportunities pertaining to the construction of the plant. A number of us who filled a truck each morning were all assigned to a pick and shovel detail. We worked digging ditches for the foundation of the huge structure. The foreman and timekeeper were white, and evidently they both were semi-illiterate. In order to keep our time straight for the payroll, a white man who had been so extensively exposed to the sun that his skin was as dark as some of ours would bring the timesheet to the ditch and have us fill in our own. We later learned that he was concealing his lack of education from the front office. What a cruel twist of fate. Black college men, striving and dreaming for a better life, were forced into a category commonly thrust upon the uneducated, while white illiterates rose to the clerical positions on the sweat and anguish of the disinherited. Our pay was a paltry 75 cents an hour. I spent the next year at Johnson C. Smith, after which I decided to leave the seemingly impenetrable walls that always loomed before the black man to constrain his potential, human development, and social mobility. In quest of that ever-elusive self-satisfaction, I followed my destiny to Los Angeles, California. Chapter 17. Boot Camp. Marine Corps Experience. My sojourn in Los Angeles was disappointing and short-lived. My search for employment was in vain. I ended up in a run-down hotel. Despite the fact that the rooms were cheap, I soon ran out of money. I was in a strange environment without even moral support. I was too far out in an unfriendly land and had burned the bridges behind me. I was trapped. On display in the local employment office was a poster that announced, "Join today and leave tomorrow." It also guaranteed that enlistees would be assigned according to their aptitude testing if they signed up for 4 years. The pitch sounded great. I felt like my situation could be compared to a prize fighter trapped on the ropes who was miraculously saved by the bell. I had studied and practiced creative writing and had contributed to small publications. I signed up for the Marine Corps, and my testing showed my aptitude for information services. To me, this meant that after my basic training, I would be sent to Quantico, Virginia, and given college-level training in journalism. As the poster promised, the next day I joined a contingent of men destined for boot camp at San Diego. I arrived in a group of 12 about 8 in the evening at the San Diego Recruit Depot on January 20, 1954. We were all anxious, a bit curious, and somewhat proud to have been accepted to serve with the world-famed U.S. Marines. By this time, the Marine Corps was integrated, and I assumed it would be unlike my segregated Army experience. This was the first time that most of the youngsters assigned to the group had been away from home. They had no idea what to expect or how to conduct themselves. Being senior in age, 28, I had already crossed the state 4 times and had spent a tour of duty in the U.S. Army. I felt that I had some idea as to what military life was all about. We stood grouped like a grazing herd of cattle in front of the military police hut. As civilians, we were not accustomed to forming military lines and controlled discipline. Above the noise of our milling and talkative, restless bodies, a gruff voice fell out of the night. It stabbed at us caustically. Complete silence and fear reigned. The voice and white helmet belonged to a Marine hardened corporal. "I'm Corporal Douglas," he stated. "You will speak only when you're given permission to speak, and you'll address me as sir when given an order or when moving from one place to another. You will always move on the double. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," we all replied in unison. With the suddenness of a pouncing cat, the corporal's hands sprang out to a gum-chewing recruit's collar. He tightened his grip and drew the frightened recruit forward. The lad was in a panic. "Swallow that gum, you goddamn shitbird, before I deck you," he demanded in a ferocious voice. The kid gave a remote gulp that attested to his swift compliance to the order. The corporal shook him up a bit and shoved him back in file. After some tense moments of much verbal conditioning, we were taken to receiving barracks for preliminary processing and billeting. We formed a long line with other recruits along the walls of a corridor. The gruff-voiced corporal ordered us to form a ladder, a military training drill requiring trainees to run up a ladder. The recruits were unaware that a staircase was referred to as a ladder, so disorder prevailed. "All right, as you were, you goddamn eggheads," he shouted. Closed out of the line that had formed tightly under the influence of panic, 3 miserable recruits stood trapped in the open aisle. The corporal charged like a raging bull and planted his boot in a sequence of rumps. In an atmosphere of panic and apprehension, we had ladder drills and fallout drills until taps sounded. Reveille went before dawn. The barracks were a beehive of activity. We made morning chow before the sun had risen. As the sun burned its way through the morning's chilly mist, we were far into our schedule for the day. We were issued health and comfort supplies, which consisted of toilet articles, stationery, and the said book, The Marine's Guidebook. After the noon hour, our heads were shaved. We looked so grotesque that an uninformed outsider might have confused us with a Hollywood set of men from Mars. During unfilled moments of processing, we cleaned the barracks and toilets. We worked in almost complete silence and resembled a camp of mummies. 4 days aboard, and we were assigned to a training platoon. We were given positions in the platoon according to height and were billeted by squads. The drill instructor, DI, did not like the way we moved with our heavy loads of gear. "Are you a bunch of dead pussies or Marine recruits?" he demanded. A youth of Latino lineage chuckled. "Come here, laughing boy," the big, rugged-looking DI demanded in a threatening voice. The lad moved toward the senior DI instructor reluctantly and fearfully. The junior DI moved instantly behind the youth. When the lad came within the range of the DI's arms, they both collared him. "See something funny, laughing boy?" the senior DI yelled. "No, sir." "Well, why did you laugh then?" "I wasn't laughing, sir." "Boy, you gonna make me out to a liar?" "No, sir. I just got something in my throat." "Boy, when I say you was laughing, you was laughing. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "Yes, sir, what, boy?" "I was laughing, sir." The drill instructor's hand cracked on the recruit's face like a pop gun. He jabbed him in the midsection, and the lad reeled back against the bulkhead. The youth scurried back into the group like a frightened dog. The incident served notice on us that discipline was more than just a term. It was more in the vein of a stamp of an iron fist. Through the haze of amazement, the DI's voice snapped, "Fall out!" We reached over each other in a wild stampede for the street. The rainy season had set in around San Diego. When reveille sounded, it was cold and raining, and great pools of water stood all over the camp area. The ponchos, which had been issued to us, were left neatly folded in our locker boxes as we were marched in formation through the cold, relentless rain. By the time we reached the mess hall, we were all soaking wet. Shuddering, we stood like machines, marking time in ankle-deep water at the entrance of the mess hall. Our feet rose and fell in the water in perfect unison that mocked the idle of a heavy diesel engine. The long overdue command to halt was finally given. The senior DI walked between the double files. Hysteria swept over the recruits. We feared an extemporaneous inspection. The disciplinarian stopped about the middle of the two files. "You cold, boy?" he shouted at a trembling recruit. "No, sir." "Well, how come you're trembling then?" "I don't know, sir." "You like the corpse, boy?" "Yes, sir." "You want to go home?" "No, sir." "Do we treat you all right here?" "Yes, sir." "Do you know anything to say besides 'yes, sir,' boy?" "No, sir." "Don't you like the rain?" "Yes, sir." "Are you getting wet?" "Yes, sir." The palm of the DI's hand ricocheted off the recruiter's face. He stood fast in the unyielding position of attention. "It never rains on a Marine. Do you hear that?" "Yes, sir," the undaunted youth replied. The rain descended relentlessly as night tightened its grip on the San Diego area. We sat like one large family in a barracks that seemed far from civilization. We were cleaning our rifles and spit-shining our shoes when the DI came in. A voice called, "Attention!" We rose to our feet and froze in our tracks. He shouted, "I want to hear the Marines' hymn. I want to hear it loud and clear. Do you understand?" he shouted. "Yes, sir," we replied in unison. Like little children, singing piously in Sunday school, we exerted our lungs.
Alrighty. Context of White Supremacy, the Katherine Massey Book Club. We will resume Chapter 18, Robert, the Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams. Folks have commentary to share on the first portion of our reading. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Before I forget, I neglected at the beginning, I said Benny Montgomery, World War II veteran, 18 days after he was executed in North Carolina, Jackie Robinson plays his first Major League Baseball game. Jackie Robinson, also a World War II veteran. Forgot to include that very important. Lots of uppity new Negroes coming back and upsetting white people after they have served to fight against Hitler and presumably the Japs. Let's see. Emails. See if we got. We'll do, folks. Get the emails and see folks who have commentary to share on the line as well. Let's see. I will share one email and then being indecisive. I'll get one of our callers and then I'll get our emails as well. Make sure I don't miss those out. Kudos to the folks who wrote in, had commentary to share on a great bio so far. Let's see, our caller 5962. Do you have commentary on the first portion of the reading? Should be with us.
Are you still on mute?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm still thinking on why Mr. Montgomery's story wasn't too much included in the text. I plugged it into the bot just to see what it was thinking or what it came up with, and the bot thinks that maybe Mr. Williams just omitted it, not because it wasn't important, but because, one, it may have been just too painful, especially with his constant having to engage with white supremacists being armed, as well as there may have been some legal riskiness for the veterans that were in Monroe. Maybe the Ku Klux Klan or other white supremacists may have tied that to some of them and then came and terrorized them. But from the text tonight, I just noted a few things. The first thing that I noted was during his time in greater confinement from his court-martial, where he's in pretty close proximity with the German compound where they're being prisoners and being treated a little more, I guess, relaxed, where they're able to smoke and play music and, I guess, enjoy their time in confinement. It just reminds me of, if I'm not mistaken, the Nazis being able to run about after Nazi Germany and defunct, and being able to flee and eventually doing CIA operations and whatnot, specifically like Operation Paperclip and that of the Source in K.O.W.S. The next thing that I noted was that Mr. Williams, when he disengaged with Helen and her grandmother telling the story about a man who was pulled over for having a brand new car, and just black people's attempt to showcase new things, or even not showcase new things, and still being harassed by white supremacists, and her claiming that had it been her, seeing her husband being killed in front of her, she would have gotten out of the car to fire upon the officer with the weapon that was found in the car afterwards, and that she wasn't just going to idly stand by and allow that to happen. And then the last thing that I noted was that, because it hit close home to me, was after Mr. Williams' time in the Army when he gets out, and he's unable to successfully go to school and successfully find a job. Them trying to force him into the 5220 club, and he's not wanting to take that job, and I'm threatening to take his benefits. It hit close home to me because I see, as my time being a senior non-commissioned officer, I see trainees come in all the time where they don't have a plan. They plan to just do their 4 years or 6 years, however long they signed up for. They don't have a plan while they're in the military, so they get out and then they can't find employment. They can't find, they're not able to go to school because the military doesn't pay enough of their schooling. So then they wind up right back in the military, and then they're behind the power curve in terms of being promoted and, seeking those opportunities that they could have had if they had a plan. So those were the things that I noted, and I just always make sure that I try to instill, especially in the black soldiers, that have a plan. If you're going to stay in the Army, stay in the military, whatever the case may be, then go ahead and get all the training you can to progress your career. If you're going to get out of the military, then you should be taking every opportunity to get all of the training for your transition to your civilian life. And that's all I have.
That almost sounds like neutralizing workplace racism a bit. Have a plan. Are we staying, making a career out of this thing in the armed services, or we're getting out of here? If we are, hey, either way, it sounds like getting all the training. That is A+, and then just thinking about what sort of training and opportunities are going to fit what the goal, the plan is. Trying to get one of them 15, 20-year military careers, be Colin Powell, or, I'm just going to, as he said, do my, whatever I signed up for, out of here, go line some things up so I can go to school, or whatever, get over on my military experience, go do a government job, or whatever else the case is going to be. Love it. Have a plan. I'm not surprised to hear that at all, that you have large numbers of black veterans who struggle in civilian life to get hiring, jobs, anything that is constructive. There's a long history of that, all the way back at least to World War II, maybe even before then. That is interesting about I hadn't thought about in terms of the why, other than just Mr. Williams had such a full life of experiences in the system of white supremacy racism, and even though he wrote Negroes With Guns, and then now they have this memoir as well, it would probably be challenging to get all that written down in a book or what have. Like, you could probably do a whole book just on Benny Montgomery alone. But maybe, hey, this is someone I went to school with, and they're talking about they want to strip his uniform off and drag him to... Maybe that is a little bit traumatized. This is not a random black person that I don't know going through all of this. This is someone that I know and have personal connections to, and then gas chamber and all that. And then even once they killed him, they're going to continue. Maybe. Man, he did list that as one of the incidents that had a profound impact on him in life. So it's not that this is something that he forgot. It's not that he didn't think it was important. He thought it was very important. Why would he not give us more than a sentence about this in the book? Maybe. True. And this also might be true as well, since there were 40 black dudes involved in this at the time that he's maybe writing or putting these narratives together. Maybe he is thinking, I don't want, them to go and who are these other 40 dudes in this group? 1960s, 1950s, you might get in trouble saying that you were out with guns pointed at white people because you wanted to make sure that they didn't do such and such to some Negro who's killed a white person, even in death. Maybe. Anywho, Benny Montgomery, lots of details. We're in a system of white supremacy racism, so there's certainly greater injustices. It's messing with me that, at least from what I've seen thus far, the longest and most detailed record of the Benny Montgomery situation, and even Robert F. Williams' involvement in protecting Benny Montgomery, is a white man. Anyway, let's see. I'll do one email and then get some of my notes on this chunk of the text. Again, Timothy B. Tyson, if folks are interested in doing more Robert F. Williams study, Radio Free Dixie, his biography on Robert F. Mr. Williams, and he does have that chapter 3 starts off talking about Mr. Montgomery. He did interviews and all that to get lots of information about that situation, and then goes on to talk more about Williams' life. Let's see, email number 1. Email number 1. Greetings, Gus, listeners, callers. Unfortunately, I am among the lame victims who own the text Negroes with Guns and have not read it. Thanks so much for adding this text to the book club. We actually did a review of Negroes with Guns before the Katherine Massey book club came into existence. This was our second year on the air, 2010. Woo! Our review of the book Negroes with Guns. Not a very big book, I will add. Not one of those. That would, in fact, I would say that might be one, if you have black people, victims of white supremacy in your life, who do not like to read, are not fans of reading. Maybe they went to a school where they were not exposed to books that really inspire them. Say, wow, I'd rather read this for a little while than be stuck on the old Netflix and YouTubing and all on the screens and such. Like, wow, I could read this. This is amazing. Maybe you didn't get that exposure as a young person or even an older person. Happens to a lot of black people. And so getting a book that's 300, 400 pages, like this one is kind of chunky. Getting a book like this, I'm like, whoa. I don't know, it'll take me some weeks to read that, and I miss a whole lot of TV watching. Negroes with Guns is not very long. I think it might be 100 pages. And I don't think Negroes with Guns, you can tell from this book, I don't think Negroes with Guns has tons of highfalutin $15 words that you're going to need a dictionary every other paragraph. I think it's pretty similar to this. Very straightforward. You could read a chapter or two a day. You could probably read one chapter a day, I bet, and you would finish that book in 10 days because it's not very long. All that to say, reading nonfiction more important than watching television. Indeed. 12. Prison spiral into Tent City. Perhaps half a mile from our wood yard was a German prisoner of war camp. You'd hear music and songs, German emanating from their camp, much more comfortable than we were. Germans were happy to be going home, but we were losing the friendly faces we had known. The fact that German prisoners of war were treated far better than black GIs on U.S. soil, even ones who were not in the stockade. I first learned of this from a white male co-worker who was told of this by his mother, who lived in a small Indiana town with German POWs. Shout to Jim Jones. The German POWs were allowed to freely walk about the town, were given decent jobs, and were even invited to social events. Ethnic Germans were, for many years, the largest immigrant population in the U.S. Dwight Eisenhower might have been some of his cousins. Yes, he didn't have no problem. He said, hey, them your ragamuffin Nazis over here in the prison camp and such that you need to get on out of here with it. No. President Ike. Not that long either. It's not like he had to wait. We got to forget about all that. Well, once you know you German. No. 13. Phil Grace, defiance to freedom. White lieutenant from Georgia was the enforcer who beat the men into submission. Young Corporal told by Phil Grace, an inmate from Chicago, bring his daily fare. Better have his mail bread with some butter. Phil threatened he was going to kick his ass. Lieutenant screaming for the guards to unlock the cell door and let him out. Big white boxer was pulled out, splattered with blood. Phil Grace concealed a razor blade. Great joy swept over the compound. Phil Grace had issued him a dishonorable discharge. Violence perpetrated by non-white people against race soldiers is a early theme of this text. Yes, although, I mean, it's in the title, Armed Resistance, so I mean, you had to know it was going to be heaps of black people, Robert F. Williams and black people. That's why I said, too, it might just be, hey, brother, if it's just you want incidents of black people and counter-violence against white people, just keep reading. We got so many of those. I mean, hey, there's a whole life of that, man. I got too many of those to put them all in a book. Sorry, buddy. That one isn't even me specifically. I mean, I love Benny, and it did traumatize me. Very important. But I mean, hey, we got the kissing case and lots of violence. Just keep reading. Let's see. 14, photo encounter. Left Tacoma. Come on, I didn't even know that. I highlighted that as we were reading, but I said, what? What? Incidentally, Neely Fuller Jr., who is a Korean War veteran, 2 times, Mr. Fuller, he commented that during this period, World War II, a part of that upheaval and kind of dispersing non-white people throughout the known universe in ways that they had not been before, as opposed to maybe all this looks different if Robert F. Williams, he doesn't get to join the Marines. He doesn't get to go join the Army. He doesn't do all this traveling, get to go to California and Fort Lewis and all. He's stuck in Monroe, dodging the railroad. Maybe things look different now. Maybe they don't. Maybe he does all the same things and still ends up having to be on the run in Cuba. Maybe. But, man, that is exactly what Fuller talked about. And he said, now, he was incorrect on this one, but he said, I bet you wouldn't have even been out there in Seattle. Go back and trace your family's lineage. That's how you ended up with black people out there in places like that in Seattle. You go up in Raymore, Alabama, or Mississippi, and North Carolina, and a whole lifetime of lynching and racism and terrorism, and then they move you out, so you got to go to Fort Lewis in Tacoma. And then you get out there, and then they beat the Japs and drop the bomb in Hiroshima and all that and say, hey, armistice day, the war's over, you can go back to Alabama. Or you can go back to South Carolina. You can go back to North Carolina now, we don't need you to I'm going to see if I can make this thing work out in Tacoma. So we ain't got no jobs. I'm going to see if I can make this thing work in Tacoma. I ain't going back to Alabama. You had a whole lot of that, and that is how you ended up having black people dispersed in places that they hadn't been before, West Coast and all, and even globally, that is how you ended up having black people dispersed. So, man, believe you me, Gus T was tickled. I had no idea. Robert F. right here in good old Seattle. And again, Tacoma is not Seattle, obviously, but the airport is called SeaTac, Seattle. Tacoma, it's like, 30 miles down the road, 40 miles down. Given traffic, any given day, it is basically 30 miles. Same thing. So he's out in Fort Lewis, Tacoma, right on. Very pretty girl named Helen Edwards. She lived in Chicago. Yeah. We left the next day. We were engaged to be married. Helen's grandmother, Mrs. Bailey, she told me that previous month, a white policeman who resented a black male having a new car shot him dead right in the presence of his screaming, hysterical wife. Does that remind you of Philando Castile? I know it's not quite the same because he had a firearm, not a new car, but she declared that if it had been her male, and her, she would have, I think that's she, if it had been her male and she, I think grammatically might be it, but whatever. She would have come out of the car with pistol blazing. 4 letters arrived from Helen before I was discharged the following month, but after the 4 letters, I never heard from her again. Male-female relationships are so difficult in the global system of racism, white supremacy. It's hard to see such an impetuous one as this working out. Maybe it's best that they parted ways. Facts. arbitrary and wanton violence against non-white people is a hallmark of the global system of racism, white supremacy. See, new report finds more than 70 suspected modern-day lynchings in the Deep South since 2000. Well, that's probably a low count, but hey, add Nolan Wells, Daniel Irving. You get quite a few that you can add to the list. Corey Ruiz. Anyway, I guess the portion about Mrs. Bailey and saying that this black dude got shot in front of his partner. You see the relationship component from both ends. Robert F. trying to talk to this young lady and be constructive, and I'm in the Army and I'm trying to do something constructive with my life. Still probably going to be kind of difficult. We ain't got Twitter and Zoom, and I can hop on the WhatsApp and see you. Long distance is a lot more challenging then. And then, even if it does work out and you get a new car, racists shoot you dead on the street just because, what you doing with this new car? You're not supposed to have no, you sold it? Well, I'm going to shoot you anyway. And there are bunches of stories like this. That old lame lion film, Mississippi Burning, about how James Chaney and those two white boys, suspected racists, were killed in Mississippi in the summer of 1964, Neshoba County, Mississippi. In that movie, one of the white FBI agents jokes, and he just passed away recently, I have to get his name, but the white actor, he jokes that his dad was upset because they had a Negro neighbor, and the Negro neighbor had got a new mule and was doing really well on the farm and going in new crops, and wow, it's kind of embarrassing. His white dad, he didn't have a new mule and all that, and he said that they saw that the mule got poisoned, and then the black fella packed up and moved his farm, sold it and moved. And he said that he eventually found out that his dad had poisoned the mule. He said his dad looked at him, and it was a shame. We realized this white child feeling like, you didn't poison that black man's mule. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And his dad said, son, if you're not any better than a Negro, who are you better than? What's your point for being on the planet? This is at the very beginning of the movie, but I mean, it's tons of stories just like this. Even you can make this current when you have incidents like Johnny Cochran, the late, being pulled out of his vehicle with his children in the car because he's driving a car that's a little too nice for a Negro. And pretty much anything over a tricycle, little too nice for a Negro. You shouldn't have that in the system of white supremacy, especially I'm white and I don't have no car like that. You know you ain't supposed to have it. Drug dealing, rapist, coon. Let's see. Chapter 15, Confronting Jim and Jane Crow at the Employment Office, Neutralizing Workplace Racism. Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Monroe, my hometown, had not changed much. Camp Sutton had closed. Local ex-soldiers, honorably discharged from the military, congregated in local barbershops. I've heard all that before. Where we renewed old acquaintances, shared the dozens, called names, took a swig of the Mad Dog. Excuse me, he didn't write all that. Club 5220 had to report to the local employment office weekly. Workers in the employment office were white, resented black ex-service personnel receiving any service-connected benefits. Caseworkers' tone of voice became more and more hostile. Office supervisor was the worst offender. She was an Amazon with peroxide bleached hair. She had a very nasty attitude and talked to what she called colored veterans as if they were no more than dogs, discussing her golf game. Her name is Kate Cason, C-A-E-S-O-N. Racist white supremacists determine places where non-white people can congregate. Barbershops, beauty shops, church, white women are co-conspirators, not innocent bystanders in the global system of racism, white supremacy. And she wasn't even locked out of the golf club in the South. Now, you got all that talk where they say, hey, we got all this patriarchy, and you see Tiger Woods and his cronies, they won't let us women come in and play the golf game, and I can get me a hole-in-one, and I got my clubs, and I got my caddy, and come on, let me get out there and play a little golf. They don't want to let the females in. She said, old Kate said, I've been working on my putt game, boy. I get out there and do that thing come on. Come on. Robert F. Williams ain't tell you, boy, I've been working on, boy, you seen me get out there on that course and drive that ball, boy, I make Tiger Woods look goofy, man. You didn't hear that from Robert F. Robert F. said, I got the headaches, see. Robert F. said, hey, I can't put me in the stockade, see. He said, I can't even get a job, see. Why you want to? I got membership at the golf club, and I practice racism, make sure black males don't get no job, patriarchy and sexism. I make sure black males don't. I make sure black veterans don't get no job. And you got some what? You gonna say what? Racist woman. Even he said the barbershops. I guess I did mention Robert F. Williams has an extensive FBI file. I should include Mabel Williams. We ain't got to her portion of the book yet. Mabel Williams has an extensive FBI file. They left the country. Extensive CIA file. You can download some of this depending on the type of access that you have to university library catalogs. In terms of Robert F. Williams' FBI file, they have it kind of piecemeal and redacted online. But the barbershops, that right, one of the places that they allow you to congregate, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly told us, and it's popped up repeatedly, that's one of the places that the FBI and racists hit. We're going to make sure we're going to load up in from now. They'll have you thinking that old Bernie Mac and Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle, they just sit up in the barbershop and just tell jokes all day long and talk about sports and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly say the barbershop is tapped. The barbershop informants. So go in there and if you want to. In fact, maybe either go in there or you don't do nothing but and tell jokes and you old waterhead coon and okay, they not talking about nothing serious. Chief Jesse Helms, father of the man who was later to become Senator Jesse Helms, who would probably get access to FBI reports on Robert F. Williams and other misbehaving Negroes in the Carolinas, had a reputation of manhandling blacks. Both of them really, Senator Helms and Chief Jesse Helms. The mention of his name struck terror in the hearts of blacks who engendered the wrath of local gentry. He had been a policeman so long it seemed he had become immune to law and the Constitution. I told her to go on and call him. That's to Kate Kaysen, the golf-swinging racist. To the local, I told her going into the local white gentry, I had become a black pariah. You already were. And now I had the extremely dangerous label as an uppity Negro. To the local black veterans, I had become a hero. The son, Senator Helms, has been discussed a lot on the cows. See Michael Jordan admits Republicans buy sneakers too. Comment was made in jest. Didn't see himself as a political activist. We talked about that comment for a long time. Even in fact, more so than this alleged joke that Michael Jordan made that they pilloried him for years, still have. Jesse Helms, I think, when he won that race in the 90s, it's been like 30 years, he won that race against the black male. Said there'll be no celebration in Mudtown tonight. He said this is in like the 90s. I think President Clinton was in office, so it ain't no, oh no, I didn't know that was real. What you mean? Sound like I'm calling black people mud. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's what I meant. No celebration in Mudtown. And again, that's same Senator Jesse Helms that he's talking about now. And his celebration for winning his Senate seat again. Chapter 16, Pursuing Higher Education. Exhausted my GI unemployment, enrolled in West Virginia State College under the GI Bill. While there, I fell under the spell of Dr. Herman G. Kennedy and President John W. Davis, who greatly enhanced my tendency toward black consciousness. Our code that is better understanding, scientific, logical understanding of the system of white supremacy racism. He often reminded his students that surviving as a black male in the white man's America was pure hell, and often you don't survive. Maybe they shoot you down for getting a new car. Professor Kennedy died in 1970, first psychologist to examine the role of race of the examiner as a bias factor in IQ testing. He was born in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. I wonder how far that is from Muskogee, where Mr. Fuller was born. He was instrumental in attempting to organize black psychologists and promoted studies, research, and writings which centered the black experience with racism, white supremacy. I bet he was known to Dr. Welsing and vice versa. 3. Dr. Davis ended the session with the words, "Young ladies and gentlemen, you do not have to be brilliant to outsmart the racist white man. All you have to do is just do the opposite of what he advises you to do." This remark brought down the house. This reminds me of a statement Mr. Fuller said, I'm paraphrasing, non-white victims should wait a minimum of 10 years observing what happens to people classified as white before adopting a particular practice that they promote. Maybe an example of this could also be called medical marijuana. Facts. 4. Scottish poet Dr. Edward G. Davidson, who visited our campus, saw some of my own work in The Quill. He had detected a political strain, and that if I really wanted to succeed in the field, I would have to forego that tendency. Spoken like a suspected racist. I don't even know what that means, to forego politics. White people are always politicking the system of white supremacy, the politics of white violence. I just posted that episode this past couple days ago, but that is, what? What? Not be political with your poetry or writing? What? That's goofy. 5. In order to keep our time straight for the payroll, a white man who had been so extensively exposed to the sun that his skin was as dark as some of ours would bring the timesheet to the ditch and have us fill in our own. We later learned that he was concealing his lack of education from the front office. What a cruel twist of fate. Black college men striving and dreaming for better life were forced into a category commonly thrust upon the uneducated, while white illiterates rose to clerical positions on the sweat and anguish of our disinherited. Our pay was a paltry 75 cents an hour. I would do the inflation calculator on that, but I mean, really. This has been often discussed on the cows. A black male college graduate has less employment prospects than a white male high school dropout. Facts. And I even think here, too, I mean, you don't just have, like, a poorly educated white. You have an illiterate white person. And he's the boss. He's not just got it. He's the boss. Like, man, once you figure this out, he said, hey, man, just fill in your timesheet so you can get paid. Okay. Even, hey, you can really mess with him. You don't even have to be super duper smart. As they said, you don't have to be brilliant. You know what? We're not going to use any numbers. Write out how many ever hours you worked. If you worked 20 hours, don't you write no 2-0. Write 20, T-W-E-N-T-Y. Every time, write out your hours. Once I find out he's illiterate, oh man. Well, man, you can't go crazy and say that you worked 100 hours, but every week it would not be, especially if we make 75. It's never going to be that I'm writing down F-O-R-T-Y. It's going to be write down 50. Write down 45, 47, 49, something in there. And they go, this is accurate? Yep, oh yeah, I mean, he's not going to do no questioning. I can't even read it. Did you get this right? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll double check. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. You sure? Oh, yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. We're getting overtime every week. Might even do it well enough. Doesn't even matter that they pay us 75 cents an hour. Already got that taken care of. Let's see. 17, boot camp Marine Corps experience. I signed up for the Marine Corps and my testing showed an aptitude for information services. To me, this meant that after my basic training, I would be sent to Quantico, Virginia, and given college-level training in journalism. As the poster promised, the next day I joined a contingent of men destined for boot camp at San Diego. He enlisted twice in the armed services, just like Neely Fuller Jr. And I would even add, I remember Neely Fuller Jr. explained why he enlisted twice. If memory serves, and I think it might even be in the archives, he was explaining why he enlisted twice. I think he said the exact same thing Robert F. Fuller said, and they are almost contemporaries. A teaspoon, not quite, but a teaspoon. Mr. Fuller was born in 1929, but which Mr. Robert F. Williams would be a little bit older. But Mr. Fuller said when he came back in the 1950s, like I said, a little bit further down the road, that it was the same thing. He came back from his first tour of duty. There was no jobs, nothing constructive happening. See lots of black people who were just sitting around at the barbershop, not doing nothing. Then I'm going to go ahead and do another tour. I'm going to see if I can get through that. Maybe I get some more training or what have you, come back and maybe I'll try it again after I get out the second time. And then he got his government job, Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And that was that. But that's he said about the exact same thing, that it didn't seem like it was no opportunities or jobs. I was going to be able to do anything and just be sitting around and wasting time. Could end up doing something non-constructive. I'm going to go ahead and enlist again. We are not looking to help out no Negro. He didn't serve in World War II, but still, we're not looking to help out no uppity Negro soldiers around here talking about, well, I was trained and I went and traveled. Shut up. Matter of fact, Fuller said while he was enlisted, his mother passed away. They gave him a leave pass. He could go back, attend his mother's funeral. He said he was literally in his uniform going back to Oklahoma so he could go to his mother's funeral. Hey, nigga, get to the back of the bus. He said, I got my uniform and I'm a son. Quick, get to the back of the bus, uppity nigga. He said that was his ride to go to his mother's funeral. What is it? Living in the system of white supremacy is hell for a nigger. And he even explained the context fully. He said, man, okay, I'm a soldier. I guess you know whatever you think you know. In those days, the bus driver carried a pistol on his hip. Get sassy if you, what they just said, you got a nice car? Blow your brains out in the street. Now what? Drive that, nigger. You gonna sass me, boy? You not gonna sit on the back of the bus, boy? You gonna get on my bus and think you somebody because you done served in the army? I'll blow your brains out. Remember that for Veterans Day. Isn't that one coming up? So we get Memorial Day first, Labor Day, pardon. We get Labor Day first, then we get our Veterans Day once again. Let's remember that for Veterans Day. And Benny Montgomery. I will pause there. And he's back to California. We keep going back to California. They act like Cali is fine. They don't have no problems there. The great lie. Let's see. I'll do a few of my notes. Keep an eye on the board. We didn't finish this email. We'll have to get the rest of this once we finish up Chapter 2. So we'll get back to email 1 later. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. Let's see. I'll give out a few of my thoughts on the first segment, and then we'll get back to it. Let's see. Getting back to Chapter 12, where we had a number of pictures in this week's section also. Let's see, Chapter 12. He says, oh yeah, there are lots of accounts of this, German troops being treated better. We talked about some of this in our study of Jonestown as well, and seeing this repeated worldwide, where the Nazis are being treated better than black people. I did, when he talks about when the Germans finally are leaving, when they were going back home, he says that it was a scene of mixed emotions. Germans were happy to be going home, where we were losing the friendly faces we had known outside our group. This was the end of the forbidden smokes. Now, granted, we don't need no smoke. Mr. Williams already been talking about his headaches and all of that. I said that last week, like they're inundated with tobacco and all that. That's probably contributing to some of these respiratory issues. But the Germans are our friends. I mean, I guess it's hard times, so you appreciate the fags and all that, talking about cigarettes. But, I mean, the Nazis are our friends. Anyway, my white friends, a white soldier who had been in the notorious Alcatraz prison informed me that Tent City was a much harsher than that had been. Now, I don't know all the regulations for how they decide who can enlist and everything, but if you've been to Alcatraz, I would think you got a criminal record. Didn't we just talk about if you are black and you're a high school graduate, college graduate, you are less likely to get employment than a white high school dropout. May even be you're less likely to get employment than a white person with a criminal record. I think if you have a criminal record, isn't that grounds for them to say, oh no, you can't be in the military because you got disciplinary issues and you might get in here and act a fool and we can't even trust you giving you a gun? Like, oh no, get on out of here, going back to doing your, nefarious activities. I thought that's something where they screen you out, and particularly, I don't think they put you in Alcatraz for no misdemeanor. Like, that ain't no you got a parking violation or you got a bunch of parking tickets that you didn't pay. Like, that's like, oh, you might have done something serious. Yeah. Let's see. They talk about being in the stockade for their misbehavior. He says that the conditions were so bad, there was no mail, and the diet consisted of one loaf of bread, one pitcher of water daily. I thought that was like a prison. I thought that was just like a television joke or something. They say you're in prison and you get a slice of bread and water or something. It seemed like legit. That's what you can get for the day. One loaf of bread and water, and we have to hang it from the ceiling so the rats don't steal it from you. What? Like, does that qualify for cruel and unusual punishment? How about that? Did the German barracks look like this? They got to fight the rats off for their one loaf of bread for the day? Jesus, let's see. He even used the lingo, broken bad. I guess that was very popular phrasing way before the TV series with Walter White and the narcotics. I thought the wooden stone breaker, I thought even it might be worth it to take a second or two to see, is this person's name really Stonebreaker? Like, for reals? This is not no nickname or whatever the case. All this with Phil Grace from Chicago. This is the black male who said, you're going to bring me some butter on my bread. And gets in a fight. Apparently he snuck a razor or whatever it is and cut up this white racist bruiser who's supposed to go in and torture all the black people to make them behave. As I said, it might just be that Mr. Williams said, hey, I have so many incidents of counter-violence. Hey, just sit back. I done talked about Benny Montgomery. I done interviews and other people have talked about that, and I don't want to get the black people, 40 black males who participated in all that, I don't want to get them in trouble. I got tons of these stories to tell you about. Tons of them. Just sit back. Keep reading. I said that last week. I said, man, it really may be Robert F. Williams just had so many of these stories that, man, I can't even tell them all. I can't even tell them all. I'm going to just try and remember as many of them as I can and share them as we go, but I really got so many of them, I can't even tell you all of them. Come on. Let's see. And I'm glad he included this one as well with Mr. Grace, because most of the time when we break bad, we as black people, we break bad on other black people. So to see Chicago Phil, shout to Dr. Welsing, Pamela Evans Harris, long listed, Bo Beasy, Mayor Harold Washington, lots of Ada Mae Craft, that's Dr. Welsing's mother, long list of folks in Chicago. Common, put him up there for lame old Michelle Alexander. John Bird, but he cuts this dude up, what have you, and backs him down, and they discharge him from the military. I love it. Hey, you like beating up people, you win some, you lose some. Why is this a discharge? If he had beaten him up, would they have discharged him? Come on in. I don't even know if he had a raise. He could have just messed him up, put them hands on him right quick and pow, 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 and he wasn't ready. Like, whatever. Anyway, Mr. Gracie says 3 days after all this, Warden Stonebreaker brought in a board of high officers. They met with Phil Grace and issued him a dishonorable discharge. They gave him a black suit with sleeves and legs too short. That's delectable Negro. We can't even give you correct fitting clothes. A bus ticket and $25 in cash. As he left, he cursed Major Stonebreaker for everything he could think of and challenged him to a duel. I said, even we got counter-violence on the way out. I even cracked up laughing at that, because we have heard about dueling white people so many times. Fellow Carolinian, the great former Governor Pitchfork Ben Tillman, that's South Carolina, but that's all same environment. They talking about dueling people and what, you done offended my honor and all that. I don't think we've ever read about no black person that hopped in a duel or challenged a white person to a duel. Like, what? What? Who is this Phil Grace? Like, what? He should have got the 4F classification like Malcolm X. Like, if you behaving like all this, how did you even get through the vetting process? If they say you sneaking razors, like, how did you get through the vetting process? Challenging white officers to a duel? Incidentally, if you tough, all these white people talking about how tough they are and I'm a trained killer, nobody want to take him up on this? Y'all supposed to be tough. You the masters of killing and firearms. You seen Colt Gray had to plead guilty to that and shot up the school. Bang, bang, bang. You can't sleep, be still in Georgia. Boy, I shoot up the school, boy. I'm Colt 45. Nobody want to take him up on the duel? Nigga, you don't know how to shoot. I've been trained. I've been in the army. I got a whole military career. I'll lay you out in the street, but nobody want to take him up on the duel? You cowards. Called them fools for staying in the white man's army. Wow. That's why. And again, Robert F. might have been saying, see, I needed a little bit more space so I could tell you about Phil Grace. Can't just bog down on Benny Montgomery. I already talked about him. I ain't told you about Phil Grace. Lots more to come. Let's see. He came to Tacoma, tripped out about that. Again, and particularly the way that Mabel Williams got introduced this week, man, I'm not a female, and I know they were married and lived a long life. They all passed on, everything, lots of years of constructive activity, had children, all that, spectacular. If I'm Mabel Williams and I'm reading this, WTH, man, like, you done talked about all these old, lame, cute black girls that you done met here and there and dreamed about old Helen Edwards and met her grandma and all this old nonsense and their cute first day. You ain't explained nothing about how we met, where I was, meeting my family. It was almost like Benny Montgomery, like, oh yeah, I met Mae Williams, we got married and moved on. Anyway, so back out being Phil Grace got that raising. He didn't even explain nothing, like, I'm feeling some type of way, like, I know I got my own memoirs, so I can speak for myself later on. We'll get to all that, but I mean, really. We ain't getting no how we met story or what sort of impact I had, how cute I was. You remember what I'm feeling some type of way, like, man, I got to hear about all these other cute girls that you did. Man, let's see. Mrs. Bailey. You ain't talk about my grandmother when you went to meet my mom or nothing. Let's see. I did appreciate Mrs. Bailey's story. Even that is kind of bordering on counter violence, because she didn't just say it was terrible that this happened. She said, if that had been me, it sounded like Malcolm X, some white people would have left the planet that day too. Even if I got to leave, some white people would have left the planet that day too. You done came and shot and he done got a car and you envious? Some white people would have left here that day too. Like, even to have black people talking and behaving like this, males and females, is like, how many we done heard so far? We got Benny, Miss Bailey, Phil Gray, and he put names on it. Like, man, we didn't got that far in the book yet, and he is piling them up. All of that, black people as cowards and turn. Apparently, there were lots of black people. Nah, I don't subscribe to none of that. I don't subscribe to none. I got a razor in my pocket right now. I will cut a cracker deep. Well, let's see. He continues. I super appreciate he consistently points out the power dynamics of employment in terms of who's in charge. The officers in the Army are all white. When they go to the employment office, it doesn't matter if they're male or female. The people in charge are white. Even if we allow black police officers, you can't arrest nobody white. The people in charge are white. Black people are supposed to know your place at all times. And the white people in charge are upset about black people getting anything constructive. They're super upset about their benefits. I'm sure that was a part of the uppity Negro narrative. The golf game, Dr. Welsing did talk about that Welsing moment. For me, I thought there was sexism. Like, really? In the 1940s and 50s, you got golf clubs where, I'm sure the golf club where Miss Kaysen practiced, I'm sure they didn't have no Negro members, male or female, at that time. Put that in your patriarchy pipe. Let's see. And so they do all this. She's upset. She's going to call the police. Call Jesse Helms. Make you behave. To her consternation and mine, Robert F. say, call him. Uh-oh. And she backs down like, uh-oh, they're going to see how we running the thing. Even that gave me pause. Why would they be upset? Or why would she get in trouble? The way he wrote it was like to see the way that she's treating these black veterans. But I mean, what white people are going to come and rally to support black veterans to make sure that they get a job? What white person in this time period is going to say, you don't give Robert F. Williams no job making $18 an hour when he's losing $2 an hour? He could just keep his benefits being a soldier? What white person is going to come and do that? Maybe I don't understand the dynamics enough, but it's regardless of what this white woman was doing, it is hard for me to think of a scenario where the police are going to come and this is going to be a neutral, or we're going to support Robert F. Williams, or we're not going to do nothing, or we ain't got no jurisdiction here. We leaving, going back and get a sandwich. What? This Negro done sassed the white woman. Y'all not going to do nothing about it? Like, what? And it might even be many black people in here trying to get employment. Many black males. What? This is a riot, right? Crazy, man. Crazy. I love it. They somehow got enough information where he filed self-employment, and then he got even more benefits. Like, wow, that right there, you talking about really upsetting some white people. Like, you go and get information where you can improve and get more constructive resources for yourself. Ooh. They hate that. Even to this day. Footnote here for Jesse Helms, a conservative Republican senator from North Carolina. He served in the U.S. Senate from 1973 until 2000. that is 40 years in the U.S. Senate. That means he would be there from the Nixon White House all the way through George W. Bush's first term. Remind me of Strom Thurmond. Have these white people, racists, get to stay in very powerful positions for about a quarter century, put in all kinds of policies and rules to practice white terrorism for decades. Let's see, pursuing higher education, Dr. Herman G. Kennedy in Virginia, another worthless Negro from Virginia. We got a teaspoon of name-calling where he says Uncle Tom Negroes join in the chorus of condemnation, hoping to curry favor from their white benefactors. And this is in speaking against Paul Robeson, his calls against racism, white supremacy. By the time, Paul Robeson also with a thick FBI file, and that is a pattern, one to have black people who speak against black people who they say, oh, that is a militant Negro. We not with that Negro. You're going to get us in trouble. That is very common. And then also the name calling. Got to do some name calling. It's got to be, that's what you go to the barbershop for. Name call black people, one of our favorite activities. I loved it where Dr. Edward G. Davidson, Scottish poet, said he would look out for Robert F. and put in a word for him at the University of Colorado. Said, oh man, Coach Prime out there would love getting me old Robert F. Like, man, as big and strong as him, we can see if we can get a spot for you on the offensive line. Man, we can do some things out here, but if we do this thing, Coach Prime with the Buffs, and they do not have no whole lots of black people. They did not have no whole lot of black people at the University of Colorado then, and I think prior to Prime getting there, they didn't have no whole lot of black people out in Boulder, even like 2025, 2026, even then. Man, you talk about going from Monroe, at least there's a lot of black people in Monroe. You going out to Colorado with Reb and Dill and them, and what Michael Scholes told us, ain't no black people out here. And see, this was it. He said, after the summer at North Carolina Central, I transferred to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte. The transfer there enabled me to live in Monroe with my wife and my 2 sons. It was rugged, commute from Monroe to Charlotte, riding in the back of the bus with law and white culture, which the law and white culture required, white culture being white supremacy, racism. But see, like, all that happened, and we didn't get nothing. That's almost a Benny Montgomery, like, dang, you done met and Mabel and y'all had children. We get to that later. Well, maybe she'll tell you about it in her book. I got other things. I think if I'm Mabel, I'm feeling some type of way, like, what, unless this is like an agreement type thing where you talk about all that stuff later. I'm not going to get into, how we met and all that. You got that end of it. I'm going to just get to the shooting these crackers. If that's the way it went, okay. We'll get to see what Mabel wrote about. Illiterate white people, we already talked about that. I did think it was important. It seemed like the white people, the white man with the really dark skin, he had to get out in the ditch. That might be white people picked on and teased him, and then to you old Black Sam, even though he's classified as white, you get out there since you kind of tawny the way they teased John Boehner. Remember that? Because he had a little bit darker skin complexion. Then we got a picture of Robert F. in his uniform. Anything else need to get in before we get to... I didn't understand why you have to lie if you're in the Navy. I mean, if I'm a soldier, rain impacts combat. Firearms, you might have how you carry your weapon, how you use your weapon. If it's raining, why do we lie? I'm wet. It's water powder. I don't even wear the same gear and uniform. If it's raining, we change that up so we can be better soldiers. Why lie? It's raining outside. I'm ready to roll. That ain't going to change nothing. We ready to be a Marine and go kill every non-white person in the world, Saddam and everyone, but it is raining. Why we got to lie? I'm a civilian. Maybe I just don't understand. We get to audio segment number 2. If you did not get to share, comment, have thoughts, write them down. We'll have ample time once the segment concludes. The Memoirs of Robert F. and Mabel, Williams, Katherine, Massey, Book Club, Context of White Supremacy, audio segment number 2.
Chapter 18. We Were Proud Marines. We were in full dress greens, and we were exceedingly happy. No longer were we referred to as shitbird or eggheads. We were proud Marines. This was the day of graduation. The band was there, and all of the big brass, all the way up to the commanding general. I was part of a platoon that was said to be one of the sharpest ever to come through San Diego, and we had been given an honor flag to prove it. We stood out on the vast parade ground. We were mechanically erect and rhythmically snappy when we passed the reviewing stand. This was our last time in the field as a unit. After this day, we would be dispersed throughout the Marine Corps. We were glad to have completed the great ordeal, but we had become attached to each other as a unit. Farewell was like the breakup of a big family. Our last night in the barracks was like a child's restless anxiety on the eve of Christmas. This was the longest night in all of boot camp. After much turning, tossing, and sleep-talking, the reveille of reveille went on. No one was hard to arouse this morning. In a matter of seconds, the entire platoon had hit the deck, and the mad scramble for the early use of the toilet facilities was on. The barracks became a relative anthill. In full dress greens and anxious to go, we fell into the company's sheet with our orders and duffel bags. The senior DI gave us the command, right shoulder, sea bags, duffel bags. We marched in platoon formation with the bags over our shoulders. About halfway to our destination, which was the bus stop at the base theater, our shoulders began to weaken under the strain of the heavy bags. Our knees began to buckle, and it was hard to keep in step. The smaller guys staggered along like overloaded barflies. We dared not even think of resting. When the bus pulled off, elements of the 2nd Battalion were on the drill field. The band was playing the Marines' hymn. The formation was sharp. Last week at this time, we were standing the same inspection, but it was all over now, and we were going home and to our next duty station. We were singing the Marines' hymn when the bus pulled through the gates of the fenced-in depot that bore a striking resemblance to a prison. The depot faded into the distance. I passed through Los Angeles en route to North Carolina, my native home. It was a splendid feeling to be in the outside world again. It seemed like ages since I had mingled freely among civilians. The colorful movement in Union Station looked like a wonderland to me. After a 2-hour wait, the train pulled out. A boisterous couple sat in front of me. They passed a whiskey bottle between them. I listened to their toasts and jokes until I fell asleep. The little town of Monroe had not changed. People were still complaining about a shortage of work and consequently not enough money. My 21 days of leave were flying. 5 days had been used en route. After many days of frustrated overtures, I reached reconciliation with my estranged wife. We spent 3 days honeymooning, and I caught a train for Camp Pendleton, California. I encountered a snafu in connections and therefore turned in a day late at Pendleton. I was placed on restriction for 14 days. Despite the fact that life was rugged at Camp Pendleton, I was developing a strange kind of affection for the Marine Corps. Up until now, I had realized the first racial equality in my life. At last, I had started to feel that I was an American and was experiencing a pride in being a part of the nation. Since high school, I had started to see the flag as a symbol of white supremacy and oppression. It had represented a walled society that relegated my people and me to a subhuman status. Now, I even entertained some idea of becoming a career Marine. The walls that had restricted and stunted my life no longer loomed before me. A seemingly hopeless past had given way to a hopeful future, with unlimited success possibilities. Chapter 19, Disillusionment. The recruitment pitch had promised to assign me according to my aptitude. My aptitude testing showed that I was qualified for information services. I dreamed of the day that I would be sent to Quantico, Virginia for journalism training. Day after day, men were being sent out on assignment. After weeks of anxiety, I was summoned by the commanding officer, who informed me that I was going to be given the best job in the Marine Corps. When I happily inquired as to what that job was, he sheepishly informed me that I was going to be trained as a supply sergeant and that I would remain on the base. My dreams exploded in my head like a concussion bomb. Struggling to contain my disappointment and anger, I informed him that when I enlisted, I had been promised training in information services. He strained to muster a benevolent expression on a face that hypocrisy betrayed, and again informed me that the Marine Corps was generously giving me the best position in the Corps. I informed him that I didn't want the best position. I just wanted to go to information services. He summarily dismissed me. I had once again been cast into America's purgatory. In the flash of a moment, my dreams had exploded, and my life had been shattered. Dejectedly, I retreated to the barracks and sought refuge on my bunk. My mind was swirling with disgust, anger, and hatred. All the bitterness of my life welled up in my heart. I am sure that if I had been in possession of a hydrogen bomb at that moment, I would have sacrificed my life to explode it. My esprit de corps was gone, and I knew that big trouble was coming. I was assigned to a barracks of so-called misfits. The Marine who slept next to me was Jewish and obviously had some mental problems. He had converted to Jehovah's Witness religion and was being completely ostracized. He adamantly refused to salute the flag and refused to make formations. Because I befriended him, everything that he was guilty of became the basis for accusations against me. The cadre set out to make our lives a living hell. Eventually, I concluded that my last and only refuge was the chaplain. I felt certain that the chaplain, who was Catholic, would be sympathetic. The chaplain was a big man with a deceptive appearance. He looked like a fatherly type, but he exuded an air of strict adherence to the status quo. After I had related my entire story to him, his face hardened, and he gave me that indifferent look that is all too familiar when white men cast aside their humanity to sternly remind black men of our importance in a world in which we have no natural claim. In a stern voice he informed me that it was his duty to tell me that there were no black Marines in information services. He further stated that if I kept pushing to go to Quantico, I was going to get into very serious trouble. I left the building completely crushed. Once again, I remembered my Uncle Charlie's words, the words that had come back many times like a heavenly refrain, that if there was a God, he must be sleeping and could not hear the mournful prayers of wretchedly oppressed black people. 2 weeks after my meeting with the chaplain, I was ordered to pack my sea bag and get ready to move out. I had been assigned to one of a convoy of buses ferrying men to the docks of San Diego en route to Korea. There was a huge transport ship waiting at the dock. A band was playing as we went up the gangplank. There were many women and children who had come to see their loved ones off. I had just been assigned a hammock when a sergeant major came and instructed me to get my gear and follow him. He was white. He was friendly and seemed too much of a gentleman to be a Marine. He whispered to me, "Keep this under your shirt." "You've been classified as a security risk and ordered off the ship. Be careful. I think it's a damn shame. Good luck, Marine." They had already raised the gangplank, and now they were lowering it again. When I started down the gangplank, many of the Marines who were standing along the railing to wave a last goodbye to those who had come to see them off gave out a thunderous ovation. They screamed, "You lucky stiff!" Chapter 20. Mabel's Visit. The next month, my wife was coming to Oceanside to visit me. The day before she arrived, we were to have a dress parade because some high brass was coming to inspect the troops. The gunnery sergeant told me, "Since you refuse to salute the flag and are an enemy of the country, you are barred from the parade." After the parade, the sergeant returned and informed me that my wife was arriving the next day, but I would be unable to see her because I was being placed on restriction for being absent from the parade. After being dismissed, I immediately went to see the chaplain and explained what was going on. He interceded on humanitarian grounds. The following week, during a morning policing of the barracks, a hostile little corporal from Texas gave me an order to wash the windows. He went away and returned shortly and said, "Professor, you go clean the head," the toilet. I left the windows and went to clean the head. After a few minutes, he came into the head and said that he had given me an order to wash windows and that I had disobeyed his order. I declared, "When 2 or more orders are given, regulations require me to obey the last order and disregard the first." "Oh, you're a smart-ass shitbird." He fumed and wrote me up and put me on report for a court-martial. The summary court-martial landed me in the brig. A prisoner who was getting out of the brig slipped a letter out for me addressed to President Eisenhower. 2 weeks later, the warden's office was buzzing with military brass. A formation was called. I learned from infuriated officers that all letters to the high command had been sent up through channels. Despite my breach of regulations, an answer had arrived from Washington, and military law required that Washington's response had to be read before the entire formation. The men were highly elated when an officer from the Inspector General's office read Washington's response to me and made himself available to all men and me who had complaints that we wanted to register. My sojourn in the brig was cut short. When I returned to the company, I was sent to the hospital and locked in a padded cell. When I protested, I was told that this was a regulation formality that applied to all troublemakers who could not adjust to military life. I was held incommunicado, and the isolation gave me a feeling of desperate helplessness. It seemed that the world had vanished from existence, and that I had entered the twilight zone of impending doom. I had read that the Russians maintained a system of committing individuals who pressed for human rights to mental hospitals. This was America, land of the free, where human dignity was supposed to be the foundation of democracy. The dignity of the individual was supposed to be a cardinal difference between America and Russia. It was what America so brazenly boasted to the world, that in the USA the human persona is sacrosanct. Lucky for me, the psychiatrist who attended me was Jewish and had some understanding of racism. Insensate men who presided over a punitive, vicious system that treated black men as if they were game for sport and entertainment at a turkey shoot could not sway him. For them, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. How could they miss? Everything was to their advantage, and they made the most of it. That was the American equation. The weight of the white man balanced against that of the black man. Chapter 21. Military Intelligence Records. Years after these incidents occurred, I was able to obtain records under the Freedom of Information Act. Some excerpts from those records state, on the 23rd of February, Technical Sergeant Kenneth Kearney informed reporting agent that subject had been admitted to the U.S. Naval Hospital, Camp Pendleton, on the 21st of February, 1955, with a diagnosis of passive-aggressive reaction number 3212, and advised that subject was being given a series of psychiatric examinations and evaluations, but that he was granted liberty from 1630 to 0800 the following morning. On the 28th of February, Technical Sergeant Kearney advised that he called Dr. R. Woolman, Lieutenant Junior Grade in the Medical Corps of the United States Navy Reserve, Psychiatrist, U.S. Naval Hospital, in an attempt to determine the facts concerning subject's medical case, at which time Kearney advised Dr. Woolman commented that subject stated that he was being called a communist and that he was being unjustly treated. It was Dr. Woolman's opinion that subject was getting pushed around. Character of investigation: espionage and subversive activities. Surveillance of subject and wife had no questionable literature in hotel room or luggage, and furnished a list of names found in address book of subject's wife. Subject admitted to United States Naval Hospital, Camp Pendleton, on the 21st of February with diagnosis passive-aggressive reaction 3212, and a Board of Medical Survey recommended subject for discharge as unsuitable for service. See enclosed. Mail cover revealed subject sent 2 letters and a telegram to the President of the United States between the 30th of March and the 13th of April 1955. Sent a letter to NAACP headquarters, Washington, D.C., and received 2 letters from members of the U.S. House of Representatives on the 25th and 26th of April. Technical Sergeant Kearney stated that subject's name had come up last November, at which time he interviewed, redacted, staging regiment who became suspicious of subject due to his expressing himself in a radical manner and constantly complaining of racial discrimination. Technical Sergeant Kearney stated that after redacted reported the matter, and after he made his preliminary investigation, a period of time elapsed before he recontacted redacted, and upon re-interview no further complaints, and appeared to be a model Marine, and requested that the investigation be discontinued. As a result of an authorized search of subject's effects by Technical Sergeant Kearney on the 12th of January 1955 without subject's knowledge, enclosures 1 through 26 were obtained. The above evidence was photostated at the Motion Picture Production Unit, Marine Corps Base, Camp Pendleton, at Technical Sergeant Kearney's request, and took place in his presence. The original of all these enclosures were returned to subject on the 21st of January 1955, and all enclosures were initialed by Technical Sergeant Kearney. Technical Sergeant stated that a perusal of subject's effects revealed that he considers himself a poet, author, and songwriter. The tenor of some of subject's articles and poems, as well as subject's wife's letters, follows somewhat the Communist Party line. Enclosure 5, an unmailed and undated letter by subject, indicates he requested sanctuary in the base brig as a protective measure, and carries the usual discriminatory complaints and the threat of appealing to civil authority and aid of American newspapers to relieve subject's oppression. Enclosures 6, 7, and 8 are samples of subject's poetry, which tends to follow the the Communist Party doctrine. Enclosure 9 contains a vocabulary and the following title, The Red Maelstrom, a Day of Judgment. It should be noted that a portion of the above phrase appears on page 1 of Enclosure 10. Enclosure 10 is an article written by subject entitled The Lost Heritage, in which subject portrays in unfavorable light treatments of recruits undergoing training at the U.S. Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California, and the ruthlessness of the drill instructors there. Enclosure 11 is a copy of the frontispiece of a book of Russian poems indicating subject's interest in Russian poetry. Enclosure 11A, which was found inside the book, indicates it was purchased at the Marlboro bookstore in New York City. Enclosures 14 and 15 are subject's United Auto Workers Criminal Investigation Division Local Number 22 membership cards in Detroit, Michigan for 1948 and 1949, which indicate his possible employment and residence in that area during the years in question. Enclosures 19, 20, and 21 indicate that subject attended West Virginia State College in 1949 and 1950, North Carolina College at Durham in June 1950, and Johnson C. Smith University at Charlotte, North Carolina in 1951 and 1952. It should be noted that among subject's effects cited by a reporting agent was a booklet entitled The Quill, mentioned in Enclosure 2, which was published by the West Virginia State College in May 1950 and marked volume number 5. This booklet contained a short story and poem written by subject, for which subject was highly praised in the foreword by a member of the teaching staff at Instant College. A perusal of the books mentioned in Enclosure 2 revealed one entitled Educational Psychology, wherein various sections pertaining to the psychological effects of racial discrimination upon Negroes, the cause and the complexity thereof, were underscored in pencil. In view of subject's confinement and his past disciplinary record, it was not deemed advisable to obtain a statement of personal history, national agency check forms, or fingerprint card from him under any type of pretext. Therefore, undeveloped leads set out below are based on information contained in subject's service record book and information developed through search of his effects. After subject is restored to duty, the possibility of obtaining the above-mentioned background data will be considered. Despite all the bitter, negative experiences I had encountered growing up in white supremacist oppressive America, I had never imagined, until I obtained my files, that a single private citizen could become the victim of such a detailed, personal investigation, vicious lies, and distortions by constituted authority. On April 19, 1955, Agent F. V. Frost reported to G2. No others in Monroe or Charlotte, North Carolina, could give any information that subject had ever engaged in CP, Communist Party, activities or was sympathetic towards communism. No known contacts of subject in Monroe or Charlotte are known to be sympathetic towards communism. Informant states considered to be reliable, intelligent, capable, and loyal to the United States. Subject has been away from Monroe, North Carolina, for the most part since about 1944. He had been back to live for perhaps 2 years in that time, and has been home once on leave since joining the Marine Corps. Would recommend subject as a loyal citizen as far as subject is known to him. Other informants believe subject to be reliable, However, State's subject does appear odd in one way, and that is he writes poetry.
Definitely got to snoop on them poetry reading Negroes. Katherine, Massey Book Club, Context of White Supremacy. Man. Amazing. Man. I just said, didn't I just say, everybody should file a FOIA request? Didn't I say that? At least one. We should be curious. Maybe you should file a FOIA request on yourself. But everybody should have at least one FOIA request. I already told you, Robert F. has an extensive FBI file. Mabel Williams has an extensive FBI file. Because they went out of the country, they have extensive CIA files and more. But wow, I had no idea that he had done a bravo for Robert F. submitting a FOIA request on himself. Wow, even that, now that's another one. Now see, Gus T told you. Now see, I could have taken more time to tell you about Benny Montgomery, my childhood friend. So you want me to not tell you about the FOIA request? Now, you've been talking about FOIA requests all year, and Dr. Welsing's FBI file already said, I'd already mentioned his FBI file more than once, because I saw it, I looked at it, I complained, they got all these redactions and everything. Why don't they just give us the whole file? He's been dead. I'd already said that, and man, I didn't even know this was going to be here. Make a FOIA request. Woo! White peoples are not ignorant about, and this is a lot of snooping on black people prior to them really getting in their groove, and I'm going to do something about this racism and all the rest of this. Like, they were snooping on Dr. Welsing when she was 19. They had been snooping on Johnny Cochran for years. They mentioned L.A. They had been snooping on him for years. Decades before we got to O.J. Simpson. They had been snooping on him and tapping his phone and all that stuff. Johnny Cochran got extensive FBI files. Extensive. Robert F. Williams, they snooping on him. We ain't even got to the kissing case. We ain't even got to all that. You got to get guns, and I got problems with the NAACP. We got to. This is years before all that, and they snooping him. This nigger down in Monroe. White people are not ignorant about racism. Period. Wow. Can't believe it. Military. I wish I had just looked at that. It's like, what? The chapter called what? Military intelligence records? What? Sheesh. Dr. Wells say racial matters. If you ain't studying all that snooping and surveillance, especially now we got the facial recognition camera version of all this, woo, you ain't been on your assignment at all. Number 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I'm going to finish up email 1 quickly. Chapter 18. We were proud Marines. Life was rugged at Camp Pendleton. I was developing a strange affection for the Marine Corps. At last I had started to feel that I was an American and was experiencing a pride in being a part of the nation. The walls that had restricted and stunted my life no longer loomed before me. A seemingly hopeless past had given way to a hopeful future with unlimited success possibilities. It is hard to see such a non-conforming personality such as the author's lasting very long in the armed services. It is one chapter. That's all it was. 19, disillusionment. I dreamed of the day that I would be sent to Quantico, Virginia, for journalism training. I was going to be trained as a supply sergeant, and that I would remain on the base. My dreams exploded in my head. As Mr. Fuller stated, we should always be prepared for mistreatment and disappointment in the global system of racism, white supremacy. The Marine who slept next to me was Jewish, whatever that means. The white? Question mark. Obviously had some mental problems. He had converted to the Jehovah's Witness religion and was being completely ostracized. I felt certain that the chaplain, who was Catholic, would be sympathetic. In a stern voice, he informed me that it was his duty to tell me that there were no black Marines in information services. Confusion among non-white people regarding the Jewish religion may be a theme in this text. And even this anecdote, I said the same thing. Looks at this guy might have some mental problems and all the rest of it. Whoa. How did you get past the vetting process? You should be another 4F. You got white people with prison records who've been locked up at Alcatraz. You got white people with mental problems and all that. Whoa. You shouldn't even be. And then you get these people with all these problems. Just put white convicts, white crazy people, put them in with Rob. Yeah, this going to be your roommate, Rob. Put them in there. Yeah, they'll get along fine. 3, keep this under your shirt. You've been classified as a security risk and ordered off the ship. Be careful. I think it's a damn shame. Good luck, Marine. Is this what they call a white ally? Pretty lame if it is. When I read this, like, how did you get this information? Do all the white people here know that I'm a security risk? Is the white brother from Alcatraz a security risk? The crazy white dude, is he a security risk? Being Negro, you are a security risk. That's what Dr. O'Reilly said. Chapter 20, Mabel's visit. Really, when I read this, it was like, Mabel? Who's Mabel? I ain't heard about no Mabel. I heard about Helen and the cute black girl who worked at the tobacco factory. Who is Mabel? What are you even talking about? My gunnery sergeant told me, since you refuse to salute the flag and are an enemy of the country, dang, you are barred from the parade. Sergeant returned and informed me that my wife was arriving. Who? What? Married? When? But I would be unable to see her because I was being placed on restriction for being absent from the parade. After being dismissed, I immediately went to see the chaplain and explained what was going on. He interceded on humanitarian grounds. Professor, you go clean the head. The toilet. I left the windows and went to clean the head. He came into the head and said that he had given me an order to wash the windows and that I had disobeyed his order. I declared when 2 or more orders are given, regulations require me to obey the last order and disregard the rest. Oh, you're a smart shitbird. He fumed and wrote me up and put me on report for a court-martial. The summary court-martial landed me in the brig. Prisoner who was getting out of the brig slipped a letter out for me addressed to President Eisenhower. Didn't I just mention something about Germans and it's all right if you're classified as white? Not ostracized? When I returned to the company, I was sent to the hospital and locked in a padded cell. Lucky for me, the psychiatrist who attended me was Jewish, I think white, and he had some understanding of racism. Maybe white friend? White ally, well-meaning white person. This all seems orchestrated to get him a dishonorable discharge, which would be detrimental to his employment as a civilian for the rest of his life. Sending the letter to President Eisenhower seems in keeping with suggestions provided by Mr. Fuller about appealing to a higher authority white supremacist. This author singles out so-called Jewish people for their beneficence. In his experience, we have previously read a text in the book club regarding controversy involving a black male, that flag, and the national anthem. See in the blink of an eye an autobiography, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, Nick Childs. That was pretty good. And food was a problem in that book too. Anyway, and they went to Colorado in that book too. I ain't gonna stand for no flag in Colorado. We will kill you out here in Denver. Chapter 21. Years after these incidents occurred, I was able to obtain records under the Freedom of Information Act. U.S. Navy Hospital, Camp Pendleton, February, with a diagnosis of passive-aggressive character of investigation. Surveillance of subject and wife with no questionable literature in hotel room or luggage, and furnished a list of names found in address book of subject's wife. There has been a lot of discussion regarding FOIA requests on the cows over the last few months. Hasn't there? Cows broadcast the FBI surveillance of 19-year-old Frances Cress. Technically, not even Dr. Frances Cress Welsington, because she was only 19, so it would just be FBI surveillance of 19-year-old Frances Cress. And that is exactly at this time period, because they were stooping on her in 1954. 19, so that's literally just a few clicks, years up from where we are right now, and they're snooping on her. What? What's she doing? What's she working on? What's she, who are friends? What's she reading? What's she talking about? Exact same thing. Enclosure is a copy of the frontispiece of a book of Russian poems, including indicating subject interest in Russian poetry. Enclosure, which was found inside the book, indicates it was purchased at the Marlboro bookstore in New York City. I bet they got all kinds of spies and snoops peeping in Marlboro. I bet they didn't close that place down or bombed it or arrested all the people around. You done let this nigger in here and buy the book. The niggers ain't supposed to be reading books. We told you ain't supposed to be reading books. Let's see. Enclosure subject attended West Virginia State College, North Carolina College at Durham, Johnson C. Smith University at Charlotte, North Carolina. Among subjects' effects cited by a reporting agent was a booklet entitled The Quill, mentioned in enclosure, published by the West Virginia State College. Booklet contained a short story and poem written by subject, for which subject was highly praised. See C.O.W.S. Book Club. Black owned. The Revolutionary Life of the Black Book Store. Just talked about that, and she just said what I said. We ain't supposed to be having no locations to encourage niggers to read anyway. Blow up Marlboro bookstore and spy on everybody there before you do. NBA player Jaylen Brown is also one of those intelligent, uppity black males. That's why they sent him packing. We don't even want you around here asking questions and talking about Bill Russell and reading books and protesting and talking about dead black people. Get on out of here. We don't want you in Boston, and we didn't want Bill Russell anyway. Beat it. Send you down the road to Philly. Beat it. Informant states considered to be reliable, intelligent, capable, and loyal to the United States. Other informants believe subject to be reliable. However, states subject does appear odd in one way, and that is he writes poetry. How peculiar for a nigga. Really? Hey. On Fred Douglass. You ain't supposed to be writing no it. Who told you you could read poetry writing, nigger? What is that? What about? Niggers ain't supposed to be reading. You ain't supposed to be reading. What you doing at the bookstore? What you doing writing anyway? Go and call names. Go to the barber shop. Call names. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Reading. A lot of discussion of informants on the cows over the past few months that you should have learned. We had Preston Lauterbach as a guest. Was FBI snitch Ernest Withers still a civil rights hero? He was just on days ago. We talked about his book, Bluff City. Most importantly, my memory on this one, I probably remember this for a minute. Ernest Withers, his code is ME338R parentheses ghetto. The most important of all of that, the R is for racial, but you don't really need that because it's got ghetto at the end, so ain't no confusion there. But the 338, meaning there were 337 informants in Memphis alone. That's the ME at the beginning. In Memphis alone, before they got to Ernest Withers. That's how you got all these informants and what he was reading, where they can go. We got a whole dossier of everywhere you've ever been, your union card, what books you read, what poems you write, what books your wife wrote, who you all hang out with, what pictures you got, and we're going to have high-definition pictures of it all. Robert F. Williams didn't say, oh, I knew they won't have all this down on me, and I knew they had been following me and Mabel. We had talked about. He didn't say that at all. He said the exact opposite. What? Oh, my God. I didn't know they had been. I didn't know they had. Who is informed about racism and who is ignorant? And we find out way, you think Dr. Welsing knew that they were snooping on her when she was 19? Let's see. That's as far as we got on this one. Number 720-716-7300. B code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Caller 5962. If you have commentary, should be with us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just noted that the confusion of Mr. Williams, it seems pretty prevalent at this point, where he's thinking that somehow people classified as Jewish or who have self-classified themselves as Jewish are, one, understanding of racism, and two, some sort of ally. That seems to be a common theme that's going on along with this book. I thought it was very interesting, not unbelievable, but interesting that he's already starting to gather some red flags and some attention because of his protest and his black self-respect for himself and what he wants to do and what he doesn't want to do. As someone who has in communications within the armed forces, I can only understand why they told him that he would be trained in that field if that's what they told him, and then switched him. It's because those types of jobs require security clearances and for you to be around information that requires you to be need to know. And I don't think they want any Negroes at that time knowing that information. And so they just showed them you can move the supplies around, but we don't want you obtaining any classified information. Maybe even specifically the classified information that G2 seems to be picking up on him about him not saluting the flag and protesting the job that he's doing, so on and so forth, as well with all the military intelligence records that they came up with. And then the last thing, I think you asked a question, Gus, about the recruits who spend time in Alcatraz and how did he get past the in processing and selection and all that. And I just remember when I originally went to the military entry processing session known as NEPS, I joined during the height of the Afghanistan war, and one of the common phrases around that area was, there's a waiver for everything. So I'm pretty sure that's probably what was given to that recruit as a waiver, as well as the Jewish person that they're talking about who has some sort of mental issue. There's a waiver for everything, and if we need boots on ground, we can get you in there. That's all I have.
Fascinating. There's a they didn't give no waiver for old El Haj Malik El Shabazz. They didn't give him no waiver. You go in there and tell him, hey man, you give me that rifle, I'm gonna put some of you crackers there. You don't have to worry about Major, Stone Breaker. You don't have to worry about that, because I'm gonna put a few of y'all down. And so, we ain't got a waiver for everything. They didn't say, we read in the book here where somebody got a 4F. They say, they don't have a waiver for everybody. Few of you, we're just going to put a file on you. We're not going to train you on no weapon. We'll take Tim McVeigh. We'll take him. Eric Rudolph, come on down. Robert F. You say with the security, We'll keep him in long enough so we can read his mail. his phone, go spy on his parents' mail and all the way. It sounded like they had lots of like informants around Robert F. even while he was in the military. Like they got people snooping on him and going back and taking notes. Jesus, woo. We have talked about lots of this.
One more thing, sir.
Yes, sir.
One more thing. They definitely do, because the chaplain is actually a required reporter. So if Robert Williams went in there and said anything that was subversive or sounded like he was going against the military, the chaplain was required to report it.
Come on. Come on. Ain't gonna be no secrets. That kept ringing through my ear over and over and over. Ain't gonna be no secrets in the system of white supremacy racism. We gonna know how many times you write your wife, how many times you call your wife, what books you got from the library, your driver's license number. Ain't gonna be no secrets in the system of white supremacy. Know you better than you know yourself. Sit around and study you all. Have a team of people that just sit around and follow and study you all day long. Especially if you are a black person and you want to talk about white supremacy racism. Even if you don't talk about white supremacy racism, because Frances Cress wasn't doing that at 19, and they were doing the same thing with her. Let's see. Email. Oh, we didn't even get to my notes real quick. Get through my notes real quick. Let's see. From chapter 18. Well, I said before, who knows what this looks like if there's no World War II and Robert F. doesn't get any of the experiences, even the disillusionment where he's disappointed about what he had hoped and the training that he thought he was going to get in journalism and all that, and then that's denied. What does the Robert F. Williams story, Life and Times, look like without World War II? Is he stuck in Monroe in North Carolina the whole time? Why? And particularly when he says, chapter 18, when he comes back, Monroe had not changed. People were still complaining about a shortage of work and consequently not enough money. That would have been Rob, sitting around with the same black dudes, watching black people be pulverized and dragged through town and all the rest of it. Like, maybe all the same stuff happens. Maybe it does not. Incidentally, he did say it took 5 days for him to get from California to North Carolina. I just think, like, wow. I mean, I'm a broke black person, and I have flown from California to Georgia, California, cross-country, Washington, cross-country, nonstop. It did not take no 5 days. It did not take no 3 days. Same day. Things have changed greatly. Let's see. Yeah, all of this where he was briefly like so hopeful and everything, just I think California might be a lot to do with that too, because we've heard so many stories of that, especially this time period. Black people get to California, it's going to be so much better, it's not going to be racism, and I can do so much, and oh my God, life's going to be amazing. And then for that, nah. Let's see. Disillusion quickly too, like nah. Even LA. Yeah, Rodney King. Let's see. They put him in the bed with the misfits. Like I said, deliberately, they won't put you with the folks who got the Alcatraz record and got mental problems, Jehovah's Witness, anybody that's going to get on our nerves and we don't need to be around. Put them with Rob. And the thinks and informants, put them with Rob. Let's see. He said, I just wanted to make sure we got it accurately on the record. He said, I had related my entire story to him, the Catholic. His face hardened and he gave me an indifferent look that was all too familiar when white men cast aside their humanity to sternly remind black males of our impotence. Not importance, impotence. Not a man, boys and gals. Even that goes back to, I'm going to drag a black female through the street and rape him. And he said they would brag about this. Yeah, I raped your nigga. I raped your daughter. What you going to do about it? What you going to do about it? That's what I thought, 'cause I'm the man. See, that's what he said that already in the book. Got the mention of Korea here. We already said Fuller did his 2 tours over there. The white person already knows you've been classified as a security risk. Even that right there, he might have been a think too. Like, I think it's a damn shame. Like, really? Get out of here. Protest Psychosis, book written by a white man. Long history of black people who say something about racism. We locked them up in a mental institution, maybe for a long time. We had a whole book about that, Jim Crow and the Asylum, written by a white woman, Katie Smith, admitted racist in Australia. She was with us earlier this year. That was before we got on our FOIA kick. Said, I'd read that the Russians maintained a system of committing individuals who pressed for human rights to mental hospitals. This was America, land of the free, where human dignity was supposed to be the foundation of democracy. What in the world? Have you read Dr. Welsing's book? What do you mean democracy? And even at this time, like, are you out of your flip? Neely Fuller Jr. talked about in Oklahoma, they built a mental institution for Negroes. It's because they would terrorize them and drive, literally, we're going to terrorize you all to death and drive you crazy, so as opposed to us coming out and doing a Coy Ruiz and we're going to gun you down in the street. Oh, you had a knife. Well, we'll just put them in the asylum and just stack them up over there and let them be raped and tortured and terrorized, but at least they won't die out on the street in the gutter. I told you we just had guest on the program, Katie Smith, man. We just talked about this. 2026. Let's see. Lucky for me, the psychiatrist who attended me was Jewish and had some understanding of racism. Really? I would humbly submit if you had talked to anybody, white or non-white, Jew or Gentile, they would have a big-time understanding of racism. 1947, 1927, you pick the time. If they're classified as white, they're going to know bunches about racism. Lots more than you. Oh, and then he said, white men who presided over a punitive, vicious system that treated black men as if they were game for sport and entertainment as a turkey shoot. That is an accurate statement of white culture. Coy Ruiz, or however you want to think about it, we go to safari in the ghetto, or we go to safari in Africa. Either or, we love it. Jumping on and beating up, killing black people for fun, sport, entertainment, and laughs. That like, man, you know, I was fit to be tied. I wasn't even aware that this was a whole chapter where he talks about his FOIA request and his military intelligence records, which you could request, and particularly if he already made a request. I'm going to tell you, my experience as a FOIA expert, budding FOIA expert, once someone has already made a request for these public documents, it should be lightning fast for anybody else to get them, because you've already done the hard work, you found them, you've copied them. Go make another copy. Everybody, pull out. I'm a proud American citizen, and I want my American rights. I would like Robert F. Williams' military intelligence records, because I'm sure there's all kinds of amazing tidbits in there. Jesus Christ, I would like my own copy. And then he got that old nonsense. He was a communist. He was being unjustly treated. He was being pushed around. We got to keep tabs on him. And then they did the same thing. He's a communist. When did Robert F. say he was a communist? He's a communist Negro, and he's uppity. We're going to keep tabs on him. Expressing himself in a radical, they said he's a radical, he's a militant. What does that mean? He's radical, militant, communist. Put that in his folder. Constantly complaining about racism. That means you're crazy and we got to spy on you. But y'all are mistreating me. That means you're crazy, and we got to spy on you, complaining about racism. What's wrong with you? Being radical. And they got all these redactions. I told you his FBI file, which is not his military personnel file. They got all these redactions. And what? Who? What is? You can barely even make sense of it. And they said as a result of an authorized search of subjects' effects by Sergeant Kearney on January 1955 without subjects' knowledge, and they didn't go on and taken pictures. They got 26 pictures from the. And what is the motion picture production unit at the Marine Corps base at Camp Pendleton? What in the hell is that? Y'all just go play. Is this where they process all the photos of your surveillance operations? Like, I've never even heard of that. The motion picture production unit at Marine Corps base Camp Pendleton? Research project right there. Let's see. And then him saying, we do not understand racism, white supremacy. For everything that I've appreciated in all of that, I super appreciate this in just the humility and acknowledgement. We do not know. We are still learning. We don't understand white people. Despite all the bitter negative experiences I encountered growing up in white supremacist, oppressive America, I had never imagined until I obtained my files, and they probably didn't even give him everything, because they rarely do that, that a single private citizen, he and Mabel, could become the victim of such a detailed personal investigation, vicious lies and distortions by constituted authority. You don't even have your FBI file, or at least he hasn't told us about it yet. You don't even have your CIA file, or at least he hasn't told us about it yet. You don't even have your State Department file, or at least he hasn't told us about it yet. They have private citizen organizations that do the same thing. I suspect they probably had that in North Carolina. You don't have that file either. And local police, you want to keep rolling? North Carolina police, North Carolina State Police, and or Monroe Police, Chief Jesse Helms, they probably got a file on you because they had local surveillance. Dr. Joshua Clark Davis told us about that. So I mean, we think that this is all just white people are ignorant and emotional and smack us around. We do not grasp the scientific intelligence that white people use to maintain a system of white supremacy racism for centuries. And matter of fact, pause. Go back last year when we talked about the Klan in Greensboro. They killed 5 people, some of them black, some of them white. The police department, it was the same thing. They had advanced knowledge that this was going to happen. They burned and destroyed. It was the same thing we heard in Memphis, where they burned like 100 bags of trash with all this intel, where they've been spying and snooping on black people. It was the exact same thing in North Carolina, and this is in like 1979, to try to kill one black person. Where they failed, they did kill 5 people, one of them black, but it wasn't the person that they most blamed for the counter-racist activity that was happening in North Carolina. This is circa 1979. Go back and look at the program we did on North Carolina in 2025. Exact same thing, except, and it was coordination because the FBI knew about this too. And they sat around and told them, what you mean we allowed the Klan to come in and kill all these people and knew it was going to happen and encouraged it and didn't do nothing about it because we wanted to get a black person killed who was behaving like Robert F. Williams? Yep. We do not understand what it means to be white. We do not understand. White people are not ignorant. What do you mean this white person understood racism? Duh! We've been snooping on you and your wife for the past year. Yeah, we understand racism. Matter of fact, start doing some voyeur requests. You will see how much white people understand racism. Mañana we will do it up, Counter Racist Weekly Review. And matter of fact, you know what tomorrow is? Emmett Till Day in Chicago. They just declared this week. July 25, Emmett Till Day in Chicago. I don't know why they picked July 25. I have to go and see exactly what was the reasoning behind that date. I guess that'd be better than picking like August 28th, the date of death for Emmett Till, but Emmett Lewis Till, July 25 in Chicago, Emmett Lewis Till Day. Cowbell. Maybe you go out and wolf whistle all day long. I don't know what you're supposed to do to celebrate. You smack a white woman? What do you do to celebrate? 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We will do it up tomorrow. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. We've heard lots about drinking liquor and whiskey and cigarettes, sobriety, headaches. Sobriety would be best. Even heard about Uncle Tom's. Creator, we ask that you remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist, even if you meet a kindly Jewish man, woman who seems to smile and think, hey, racism is kind of rough. Stop saying not all white people are racist. Shout to Sammy Davis. Creator, we ask that you remind us to stop name-calling and cursing people classified as black. Even the Uncle Toms. Even the Uncle Toms. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.